and please ask the city clerk to take roll.
Councilmember Marroquin.
Present.
Councilmember Cardenas Singh.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Oliva.
Present.
Mayor Villegas Walker.
I am here. If you would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Garcia and remain standing for the invocation, please.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But all remain standing if you can and bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening with our hearts open, and we are asking a special blessing on all of those who are troubled at this very special time. We know there are people who have lost loved ones. We see the COVID pandemic coming back and putting stresses on our hospital system and on our essential workers and our hospital staff, and we pray for a special blessing of peace and endurance for them. We know this is a very difficult time for people to lose loved ones, so we pray for an extra measure of comfort for those families who are going into the holiday season missing someone that they cherished and loved. We're also mindful, though, of the many blessings that you've bestowed upon us, and we are grateful every day that we live in this country, grateful that we live in this community, grateful that we have the opportunity this evening to do work on behalf of our constituents to make their lives a little better. Please open our hearts, open our minds to be ever looking for that opportunity to offer that word of encouragement. May your grace pour out upon us this evening and always, and these things we pray in thy precious name. Amen. All right, I want to remind everyone that this is a public meeting. If you have something that you would wish to chat with us about, please fill out one of these speaker slips. Persons wishing to address the council are not required to identify yourself. However, this information does assist the mayor in assuring that you are heard and recognized. It also assists our city clerk in preparing the city council minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called, please step forward to the podium, state your name for the record. Unless your time is extended, you have a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council on any matter not appearing on our agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion later on our agenda. Okay, I have 2 comment slips. We're actually going to start the meeting off with something that I am so excited about. I can hardly stand it. I didn't sleep a wink last night in anticipation of this. I'm going to ask Charter Communications to come forward with a little early Christmas present for the city of El Centro. So, Michael, if you could introduce yourself and off you go.
Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, thank you so much for having me here tonight. My name is Michael Hadland, I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications. As you all know, in 2010, the earthquake hit the public library here and caused damage. And I know you guys took 10 years to be able to fund and build this next library. It's going to be opening in the summer of 2022. We're very excited to be able to partner with the public library here and donate 20 Chromebooks to be able to be checked out by students and seniors that will add great benefit to the community here in El Centro. So we really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys will be able to put these to great use, and we'll hopefully add to this for many years to come. So thank you.
Michael, thank you. Michael, would you like to introduce your coworker that came with you?
And yes, this is Tiffany Braunfeld. She is our Director of Community Services here for
Tiffany, Michael, thank you. What I'm going to do is ask all the library staff to come forward, and Michael and Tiffany, we're going to take some just fabulous pictures.
Yeah.
Council, we do have our photographer, right? He's hiding in the back room.
Yes, he is.
Come on out here. Come on, library people. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, laptop. There we go. Camera. Oh, right behind us. We got one. I know, but it's oh, they're all looking at
Grab that if you like.
perfect. Okay, and Emilio's going to tell us where we need to be.
Are we centered?
Come on
No, I'm here as the photographer.
Oh, well, okay. Are we, do you need some library folks on the other side of Michael, or?
No, you stay there, please. You stand right next to him, please. Here we go.
Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer. Okay, wait, we're doing a prop change. Prop change. Oh,
now.
oh, wait, oh.
It's like a wedding.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Michael, thank you. Man, that's a game changer for us. Thank you so much.
And thank you, staff, for being here. Appreciate it.
All right, so council member comments. We'll start at this end. Martha.
Yes, thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Charter Communications. I think, if anything, this pandemic really shed light on our digital divide. By having access to these Chromebooks, it gives us an opportunity to bridge that divide. It creates access. It creates opportunities. When we think about a Chromebook, it serves many purposes. It allows for a job search, to complete a job resume, even complete the, give us the opportunity to even pay our utilities. So it is part of our everyday life, and it's great when we have access and we can provide that opportunity to our residents. So thank you so much for being our partner in building that bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with my colleague in the comments that the digital divide was shown to us during this pandemic, whether it's access to hardware or to access to the internet, but certainly everything my colleague mentioned in applying for a job, searching for housing, right? Paying your utility bills. How many of us have called a department, a governmental department, and it says, we'll get to you at some point, or you could visit our website, right? And so there's a push for many governmental or private companies to get folks to get onto their website to have the answers, or to get the answers that they're looking for. And certainly our youth depend on these machines. And I mentioned to you earlier before the meeting that a lot of our seniors have said that they would like to have computer literacy classes. And somehow I hope that these Chromebooks kind of help us get there to facilitate and to provide these types of classes so that we're not pushing out our seniors that may not be as comfortable with technology as perhaps our youth are. So thank you so much for this contribution. I appreciate it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Charter Communications, for your donation. As an employee of a private school, I know how vital technology is, you know, to not only our schools, but also as well as to our library. And I know that the expense that we would go into to purchase 20 Chromebooks is something that's unheard of in my budget at school. But, you know, and I know that it's going to help us to be able to provide that service to our community. And, you know, I know that, you know, when my colleagues talk about senior citizens not knowing how to operate these things, and even just a telephone, I know, and I experienced that with my mother. So,
You mean when you were stranded at the parade because you couldn't, no, that's something different.
so I really appreciate your consideration for this donation, and I know that we will get a lot of good use from these computers. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia?
Charter Communications, I'm completely and entirely grateful. I grew up in libraries, and I remember when my local libraries first got their first computers and gave us access to what was then dial-up internet, but still was completely revolutionary. And now, once we saw what occurred with the pandemic, it's especially vital that every child have access to the internet. It essentially contains the entirety of human knowledge.
and for them to have access to be able to look up whatever interests them at the click of a button really can open up their minds to whole new worlds. And our senior population as well, for them to get essential training in computers and to be able to access all of the new websites and to be able to navigate them in order to deal with their everyday lives to make it easier for them. It's just something that cannot be measured in dollars. So thank you very much for your contribution, and I'm sure that the children and seniors of the city of El Centro will use them well and be very well served by them.
So, Michael, I know that it was a little scary for you to talk to me the first couple of times we met. Just because we've had a little bit of a rocky history with Charter Communications, but I'm here to say all is forgiven, and as my colleagues have said, education and access, those are the great equalizers, and we're very grateful for this very generous donation and look forward to presenting them to our library when it opens. Library staff, you guys are amazing. We appreciate you every day. Thank you for being here to join in this celebration. And Tiffany, even though you're just the official photographer, we appreciate you making the trek here to be with us for this wonderful celebration. So thank you all. Okay, we are going to transition from a donation of Chrome books for the library to 5150s. So,
Wow.
what a pivot, Dr. Edward. For the benefit of those watching from home who may not be familiar with 5150, you may want to start there, Dr. Edward.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council members, we're very excited actually to be joining hands with our county mental health partners to deliver some good news tonight, I think. Not just what Letty is going to share with you in slides, but we've had a hard road with 5150, and I'm going to ask Letty to maybe present what that means from a crisis management, and then the steps that we're really doing or working together. And the final meeting that we had about a week or so ago, I believe, with the county CEO and providing direction. I know that the hospital board had appointed trustee Amanda Brook to help us work with the county in moving on some of those things. And what an amazing journey it's been, but I think the road ahead is awesome. So I'm gonna turn it over to Letty to discuss with you details, and then I'll get back and share with you some of the thoughts at the end.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Edward.
Good evening. I'm here with Maria Ruiz. Maria Ruiz is a deputy director for behavioral health and overseeing most of our programs that are related to psychiatric emergencies. I want to thank you for that invite and the opportunity to come and give you an update on the things that we've been working on. I think that it's been a year of a lot of challenges, but for us, it's a very exciting year because we have been able to move forward with some of our projects. I know my presentation could be lengthy, so I'm going to try to go, I don't know, is someone controlling it or can, okay. So just to give you a little bit of a background, I was here about a year ago, October 20th. At that time, we had barely started some of the activities. We were here to present the findings of the RDA and some of the steps that behavioral health that had done, but most of them had been blocked by what we were facing with the pandemic. One of the things that we mentioned at that time is that one of the recommendations that they had made needed further analysis, and we requested another consultant to come and work with us. They did pretty much the same thing that RDA did, except that they focused on similar counties, because we know that the first evaluation was pretty much in larger counties, nothing related to our county, except for one county, I believe. So the Kempen Consulting focused more on our numbers and our population. And so we're here to present some of the things that behavioral health, and I want to just say that a lot of them are specific to behavioral health, and in some of them, it's a collaboration that we have done with the hospital and with the police department. So let's continue to the next slide. So I think that both consultants came up with the same findings. We are facing the challenges that all California is facing regarding lack of hospitals, the fact that we have so many individuals that do not accept services and they use a lot of our resources repeatedly, and then also the inadequate location to bring individuals on a 5150. Next slide, please. This is the breakdown that the RDA had reported. So I will be giving you updates on this same sequence, the crisis response, which is when we're facing we're getting those calls, then the crisis intervention, and then the crisis resolution. So I'll be telling you in that sequence the things we have done. So next slide, please. So on the crisis response, as you see, it's addressing a variety of things. Last time we had mentioned as far as the outreach and to communities, we were impacted. So a lot of things we stopped. Then we resumed slowly virtual, and slowly we have done a lot more outreach. Our programs continue to do a lot of outreach to individuals that have not been active in our services and that we want to engage them. So the tests and the SES continue now in full operation. We're participating in a lot more fairs and events in the community. The professional training, we have been offering. Some trainings are not allowed because of COVID, and there needs to be some interaction. So the ones that we're able to bring, we have been bringing them. We have been sending those out to community agencies to participate. It's just not just for behavioral health. We add other agencies to participate. One of the recommendations, as you see on the right, is to look at the possibility of developing a CCRT, a crisis core response team, and I will be giving you more details on that one. And then also to discuss the ambulance issue. That was something that was, if you notice, the second column is talking about the agencies that are responsible in the time frame. This didn't go anywhere with the pandemic. I know there was a lot of demand for services. This is a shortage, and we've been in conversation with the ambulance service, and we have come up with a protocol on how they're gonna put us in their list. So, because a lot of times we were losing hospital beds because we didn't have means of ways of transporting our clients to the hospital, especially the ones that were aggressive and not cooperating. I just want to say, and it comes in another slide, that we have been transporting, that we're using our cage cars to transport some of those individuals because we know there's a need. And in the past, everything had been by ambulance. So to the next slide is the
Sorry,
crisis.
can I interrupt you just for
Sure.
1 second? So where primarily are the out-of-county placements going?
It's primarily San Diego, Riverside, and LA.
And are there specific facilities in San Diego, Riverside, and LA that are more inclined to accept our patients than others?
Yes, we have contracts with API, Rady's Hospital, College Hospital, Maria. And I have that in another slide, but we
Okay,
have.
okay, very good. I'm just trying to figure out in terms of placement
Yes.
where they're going. So
Yes.
San Diego, Riverside, LA.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay.
So going to the crisis core response team, this is something that we started, if you noticed, right after our presentation here. So we started on specific days. It was a pilot. We started it Wednesday through Saturday, 12 to noon to 10 at night. We developed a protocol, and we work closely with the local law enforcement agencies. After the review of the findings of that pilot, we decided to implement this. And based on the hours of operation, the calls, that's how our decision was made to expand the program. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the numbers for the pilot project, which run from November to June of 2021. There were 99 calls made during that time frame. Of the 99 calls, behavioral health responded to, or took over 88, and law enforcement placed 11 individuals, reducing that number.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So that has been, based on these numbers and the ones on the next slide, that talks about when we got the majority of the calls, is that how we decided to expand the program. The darker green is the hours of operation that we had the program. And then we looked at where the other higher numbers were. So we noticed that Mondays, Tuesdays, and then some on Sundays, where we were getting calls during that time, and also from 10 to 12. So one of the decisions based on the numbers was to increase it to 7 days a week and to expand the time from 8 in the morning to 10 at night. If you notice, we had 5 calls during that time that were outside, and for the most part, if we have the staff on site, we're able to respond. So we are asking law enforcement that if they get a call and it looks like it's a mental health, give us a call, and if we have the staff on site, we will provide that assistance after those hours. The next slide just tells you about the departments that use the CCRT, and it's divided by numbers. And also at the bottom, you see of the 11 5150s, which departments were the ones that placed individuals on a 5150. The average response time was 23 minutes, and the wait time to assess and coordinate took about 20 minutes. So it took about an hour to free the officers from being on site, and behavioral health then took over.
And was this like time in the field or time at the hospital, or where is this?
Time in the field, wherever the individual is, wherever the call is, that's where we respond.
In the field, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
So then the next slide, we have the actual program that is in effect right now. And that started July with the new hours of operation, and we have seen an increase in calls. If you, the individuals placed of the 119, we see that the majority are still going to behavioral health. 13 were placed on a 5150, and 106 were taken over by behavioral health. One of the things we've seen is that when we respond, we are able to de-escalate some individuals, and we're able to provide a lot of interventions, so they do not need, they can be removed from the 5150, and we link them to resources, and we provide a transportation to wherever they need to go. So the next slide has the calls, those 119 calls. Actually, we have received more, so this one lists the other calls that we have received. Some of them, 8, the officers decided to cancel the call and not ask us to report because they had taken care of the situation. But most of the calls are coming within the schedule period. The next slide, again, talks about the law enforcement agencies that are calling. We've seen an increase. As we continue to implement the program, we noticed an increase of interest in the other cities. Before, we were not getting any from, like Calexico was very low. Now we had 17, so the numbers have been increasing. The next phase is a crisis intervention. And this is the part that I will be explaining into more detail why a CSU and a PUF was not recommended. A CSU is a crisis stabilization unit to have individuals for 23 hours. After 23 hours, there needs to be a plan. And then a PUF is a psychiatric health facility which works as a hospital. And the minimum capacity for that is 16 individuals. So the transition of our triage unit was recommended to be more of an outpatient clinic environment that continues to be an outpatient clinic. The next issue regarding the hospital of individuals in jail, we understand, and this is from communication with the county jail, is that they have contracted with a hospital from San Diego to take some of the individuals that need inpatient care. Prior to the pandemic, we started providing assistance to the hospital, and I know Centro has been accepting us having staff on site to assist with providing guidance to the individuals. We had to stop that because of COVID. They were focusing on the pandemic, and having an outside coming and was going to create more of a concern having someone from the outside. So it was suspended, but it has been reinstated. We have trained staff to be at both hospitals. We're pending the start date for Brawley, but El Centro has restarted having our staff on site. And one of the things they do is they assist in identifying, coordinating services. Do they need to be transported to our clinic, coordinate with a psychiatric hospital? So they are like the liaison between the department and the hospital. And one of the things that I will also explain is that originally we had a protocol for individuals being brought to our crisis center. It's an outpatient clinic, so our staff is not equipped to deal with individuals with medical problems or individuals that are aggressive or violent. So we have a criteria of who can be admitted. One of the things that happened during COVID is that because of COVID, we were requesting, on top of our medical clearance, we were requesting a COVID test and to be negative. Because initially we were not asking for it, but one of the things that happened that our staff started to get exposed to some individuals that we had on site, so we had to decrease our numbers significantly, our staff numbers, so we then decreased the number of individuals that we could accept in the facility, and then we had so many complaints. Because of that, we started requesting a COVID test on all the individuals placed. One of the things that happened in working with the health department is that they have agreed to test the individuals that are not aggressive, that do not appear to be under the influence. So that's been deviating those medical clearances from the hospital, and they're taking place now at the health department. Our department has applied to be an antigen tester, and we have been approved. We have participated in the training. We're just waiting for the authorization so that we can do those ourselves in our facility. So I'm thinking within a week. So the next slide will cover the information considered for a crisis stabilization unit, and this is at 23 hours.
Remind me again, what's API?
Alvarado Parkway Institute.
Okay, and there was a comment on the prior slide that API is not interested in a regional
Right,
solution.
and this is coming on the next.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the crisis stabilization unit, and this is the reason why we hired a consultant, because we had concerns, and I participate in regular meetings with the Directors Association, and this is a theme, conversation that comes on a regular basis about the cost of running these facilities, the demand for specific positions, and how the whole state is struggling with the actual positions to fill these facilities or to staff them. Last time I came, there were 18 facilities in 18 counties that had crisis stabilization units. Now it's 17. One closed. They just couldn't deal with the cost and the struggling to staff it. So one of the things that also are concerned is that in a CSU, you can only have individuals for 23 hours. In many cases, individuals stay at our facility past those 23 hours because of the same issue that we see, that there are no hospitals. It takes a long time to get a bed. So if we had an individual in a CSU that needed to be hospitalized, then after 3 hours, it's administrative pay, and the county would have to be paying for those additional hours or days. And so the 3 small counties that have CSUs were interviewed. They were Humboldt, Napa, and Nevada. And they indicated that they have to use other income revenue to make this work, because just by Medi-Cal and realignment, they're not able to sustain their programs. The last one is not even LPS designated. They're operating as an outpatient clinic, just like ours, and they were very interested to see what we were doing, because they said, we're not able to staff it, we're not able to meet those requirements, so they're also struggling. So one of the things that they're doing is they operated during regular work hours, and then all the calls that come after 5 o'clock goes to their emergency room. So they're located next to a hospital. So of the 28 medium and large counties, only 14 have CSUs. So one of the things that we had when we were talking with the RDA was that this impression that all counties have CSUs, or all counties have a designated facility. And that's something that it's not. I mean, only 17 counties have CSU, and they're mainly in the larger counties with a lot of resources. So when we spoke with Alvarado, and we said if we were to do something, it would be a very small unit based on our numbers of clients that come and the average length of stay in our hospital. And they said we also check the numbers, and the numbers are not checking to operate it because of the staffing and the cost to operate. So let me see, do we have another slide? Next slide, please. This is giving you a total number of individuals that come to our crisis desk over the years. And we separated 2021 because, as you see, the numbers have really decreased, and we think it's COVID. A lot of people were really not accessing services. But even during the years that the numbers were higher in the 1,000, so we averaged 1,018, our average daily attendance in our crisis unit is 2.78, about 3 clients on a regular basis. There are times that the numbers go up, but on an average, it's about 3 individuals. And at the bottom, it shows the length of stay in our facility. So we have about 42 individuals that stay less than 24 hours. The other 50% stay past the 48 hours. And that's one of the concerns we have at running a CSU and at having an option. Where would those individuals go after those 48 hours? The current facility allows us to do that and maintain them until we find the appropriate placement.
So the folks that are here, the triage unit, do they then get triaged somewhere else, or they're released back to wherever they came from?
It all depends. Some of the individuals that require hospitalizations, and I'll show you the number for hospitalizations, how many are actually going to a hospital. So some of them are waiting past those 24 hours because we're waiting for a bed, and we're communicating with the hospitals for a bed. Some individuals we have a doctor that sees them on our triage unit, so they start them on medication. We start some interventions, and then we start linking them to our community, our outpatient clinics, whatever services they need.
So they could be discharged home, not discharged to a facility.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And some of them may be discharged to a facility, but it's a lower level of care, not necessarily a hospital.
Got it, okay.
So the next slide has the information considered for a PUF, a psychiatric health facility. Again, of the 58 counties, only 21 counties have a PUF. The minimum for this facility is 16, also with high staffing requirements. And one of the recommendations that came up during the discussions we were having was a regional PUF. coordinating with other counties to provide resources. And we discussed that with API, and API mentioned, who's also the provider of the Jackson House. They indicated that because of our location and same feedback from our consultant, our location is not like the northern counties where you have all these small counties where they can share resources. We are surrounded by Riverside, San Diego, who have their own resources, and they're not interested in sending their clients to us. So we would not be able to bring those clients. He has been trying that with the Jackson House, and he has not been successful, not even with Yuma, because we contract with them for 10 beds, and they want to fill the other 5 beds, and they have found that very difficult. So he's been reaching out to the other, they have another Jackson House in San Diego, and they're not able to transfer those clients here. It's a different payer, but again, they said it would be very difficult to do a regional facility. So let's go to the next slide. And this is telling us of the 5150 holds that we have had over the years. Of the average 110, 166 end up in a psychiatric hospital. So the number, again, it's very low to consider a 16-bed facility. And just to let you know, one of the things that the state has been trying for years and years, ever since they started closing the state hospitals, is to return people to the community. So one of the things that we find is that even when we send people to the hospital, they're not staying for a long time. Many times they're discharged after 3 days and they're back with a few medications. So they're not resolving a lot of their problems. In 10-11, we had close to 400 hospitalizations. So one of the things we've been doing is we've been expanding services to try to serve those individuals within the community and prevent hospitalizations. So we have gone from close to 400 to 166. And last year we had 95. Again, I think that's all related to the pandemic, not that there was not a need for more.
A clarifying question, are these individual admissions, and could they be the same person with multiple admissions?
That's on my next slide.
Perfect.
I knew you were gonna ask.
I got my ESP going on here.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Sure you didn't see these slides before?
I did have a question. Can we get these emailed to us, please, the presentation? Thank you. That's excellent.
See, yeah, so let's go to the next slide. So if you see, for fiscal year 17-18, we had 76 adults, 40 children. That's 176. Of those, 22 were repeaters. And you have that for the 3 different years. 4 years.
I'm sorry, Ms. Blancarte Garcia. The 22 repeats, it's 22 of the total 16. So that 22 includes children and adults?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. And then at the bottom, it gives you an average of the number of days. So the daily bed use and the average daily bed use combined, it's been averaging 3 to 5 the most, 3 and lower. So the actual hospital stays and the daily hospital bed, the recommendation was for us to consider contracting for a dedicated bed for 4 individuals because of the numbers. And we'll go into that right now. So does that explain your question?
Got it.
Okay. So then the medical clearance, and I think I already explained this, that our protocol and how we're doing right now and how we started with the health department, and right now we're just pending to be authorized for us. Because this was something that was mentioned as one of the steps that needed to be taken during the intervention phase. So you can go to the next slide. And one of the things that you see in this slide is who's requesting those medical clearances. A lot of them were requested by behavioral health on some cases, but in some of the cases, they were just obvious to the officer that those individuals needed medical attention, that they were not doing good. So this gives you a breakdown of how medical clearances were decided by the different groups. So the crisis resolution, which is one of the last stages, and continue to provide support programs like the SES, the TESS. So we continue to run those programs. We have increased some of the services that we're doing for county jail. Under MHSA, we're able to provide groups and interventions. That continues. The question that you brought up about the individuals that are repeating, that is a program that we are, I'm hearing voices.
Oh my gosh,
Okay,
I think so.
5150 check. Okay.
So when we're talking about the individuals that continue to use either the hospital, law enforcement, behavioral health,
Yes.
we are implementing an intensive community treatment model. This is a model that is intended specific for those individuals that do not engage, don't want treatment. So this is creates a multidisciplinary team that will focus on those and carries a small caseload of those 22, 30 individuals that we see on a regular basis. And the whole idea of this program, it was a 3-month training that our staff attended and just completed. Is to address that high-risk those high-risk individuals that are using a lot of the resources that go from door to door, and we all get to know who they are. So that includes collaboration with law enforcement, with the hospital, because we all work with these individuals. So we just completed that program. The other thing that we're doing is we're joining the public defender in implementing a diversion program for those individuals that commit a crime. They have to be specific crimes that meet a requirement that the crime was a result of their mental illness, and they're signing an agreement that they will participate in mental health treatment and follow all the recommendations so that their crimes could be waived. And the minute that they don't comply, then they get reinstated. So that's something that we have been working on. The exploring of bed options, psychiatric hospitals. So we have continued to work with the Jackson House, and that has been working really well. I think that's one of the programs that has really helped us divert a lot of the hospitalizations because a lot of the individuals come on experiencing a psychiatric emergency, but doesn't warrant the level of 5150. So we have that option, and we contract for 10 beds, but many times we're using more beds because we want to support. We want them to stay because they're a very important resource for us. We also contract 20 beds with Imperial Manor and Tender Loving Care 6 beds. An out-of-county contract for inpatient. So this is where I have the hospitals that we had mentioned. Currently, we contract with Alvarado Parkway Institute, Rady's Hospital, and Canyon Ridge. And we also have individuals for voluntary placement, 12 beds, and out-of-county Log Skilled Nursing Facility, Parkside, 20 beds, Lakeside, 17 beds, Riverside, 2, and Vista Knoll, 5 beds. So we have established all those contracts. And exploring the alternative transportation, we have been working with the CCRT, and I'll be discussing in a few minutes a couple of the grants that we have been granted that assist us with additional transportation for individuals on a 5150. But yes, we have been doing some outpatient transportation. The next slide, for the most part, covers the intensive community treatment that I had mentioned in the previous slide. It just gives you a little bit more detail on what the program offers for those individuals that continue to provide services. So the next slide is the out-of-county inpatient hospitalization. So this tells you that, you know, for the most part, when it's a recommendation that we should contract for dedicated beds, because we average 4 individuals on a regular basis. So if you look at the breakdown, this is how much we paid over the years for inpatient hospitalizations. For those 116, every year it's been different, but that's been the cost for the 4 years. It was $1.9 million. We contacted a number, 17 psychiatric hospitals. No one wanted to contract with us for dedicated beds. They are busy, they are reducing their beds, and they're contracting with others. So for us to consider 2 beds, and this is Alvarado Parkway because we have a relationship with them, for 2 beds, it would be 1.6 a year. So that would be very hard on our budget to say, I mean, to 1.2. So to contract for those beds, it would be, you know, a big hit to our budget. But one of the things that we presented to the board, and one of the things they are recommending, that we speak with our local hospitals, to our local providers, to see who would be interested in providing a small. The recommendation for the Kemper group was, you know, if we could have at least 5 beds within the county, that would meet the needs of the individuals that you have on a regular basis based on the numbers that they saw over the years. Next slide. So this slide covers the 2 grants that I mentioned that we were granted. SAMHSA just gave us a grant for $5 million. And we will be implementing Casa Serena. One of the things that we see is that a lot of the individuals that come to our crisis desk, like we mentioned before, a very small percentage are the ones that really need to be hospitalized. A lot of the rest need other lower level of care. And Casa Serena would provide that. This would provide age-specific groups where people can come when they're experiencing a crisis, when they know there's something going on, that it's not right, or individuals that are brought by the law enforcement to our crisis desk and they don't meet that criteria. We have a step down. We have a place where they can self-regulate with staff, trained staff that will be working with them to help them transition back to wherever they need to go, or placement, but our staff will be working with them to have that linkage to the most appropriate level of care. That is gonna be located at our same site that we have. The crisis desk would be at one side, and this facility would be on the other wing, so it would be an easy transition for those individuals. So this will be open to individuals that are or not open in our services, that can be brought by law enforcement or can just come as walk-ins. They will be assessed and they will be linked to our outpatient services when needed. Then we also got a $3 million grant for 4 years, and this is to expand our crisis for response teams. So what this does is really gives us an opportunity to create a unit of mobile services. So it will allow us to have mobile services at the schools. We've been receiving a lot of calls from high schools primarily for kids that are not doing well. And we have been able to respond, but this will really give us the opportunity to send staff, have them co-located at some school, visit the schools, and respond to those crisis situations so that law enforcement would not have to respond. It also provides for vehicles that will assist with the transportation. The crisis co-response team will add staff, and also so that once, right now we're only taking over those cases that are not on a 5150, But if law enforcement places individuals on a 5150 that are not violent, that we can take over, there are a lot of those individuals that are cooperating and want assistance, then our staff would be able to transport, and we would free law enforcement from taking them to the hospital or, so that would be part of what we would be doing. And the care team is one of the things that we're doing. We would be able to expand our hours at the Centro Regional, and also continue to provide assistance with transportation for those that need to be coming to our services. And the next slide, we have another grant that we're pending to hear from them, hopefully this month. It's a smaller grant, but it would help us to provide services and support to individuals who have been released from jail and from, that need services from the community. So we're hoping that that's gonna be granted pretty soon. So one of the things the next one just highlights a few of the things that we've seen over the past year. And I know some of it may be due to the pandemic, but we have already seen that diversion of individuals from a 5150, behavioral health, of all those calls that could have been 100% law enforcement, 89% have been diverted by behavioral health. There's been a decrease of involuntary holds by law enforcement before, and you're gonna see it on the next slide. They were taking 90% of the 5150s. Right now, they're at 77. So behavioral health has been increasing. Before we were 10%, now we're at 17%. 23%. There's been an overall decrease. Some of it is due to the increase in resources, where we used to have an average of 85. Right now, we're averaging 38. And there's also been an increase of awareness of our facility as a walk-in where people can come for services. For years, we averaged 9, and now we're getting about 33 calls visits, which is pretty good. And the other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of people are coming on a voluntary basis, and they want to be hospitalized. And before, that was not. So we're hoping that that's because of all the stigma reduction work that has been done. So the next slide, it's a little bit, just to a breakdown of all the 5150s by the different agencies, the ones that are done by the CCRT, law enforcement on their own, some of them that take place as a result of us being at the hospital, and the ones that are taking place are a crisis unit. And then that's the total of 192. On the next section, you see all the psychiatric, not the same slide. You see all the psychiatric emergencies, that there's a total of 461 that are coming to the attention. And that's just during the last few months that we've seen.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
It's strange when you see a whole column of zeros. So is that because you did not receive data, or there are no psychiatric emergencies between July and November at
PMH? They have had them, but they have law enforcement respond. And in El Centro, we have a staff member that is assisting, and we do the assessments. So we will be sending an individual to PMH, but at this point, they haven't located the room and how the logistics of how that's gonna work. They're interested, but we haven't started. And
it's a timing issue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the thing I was talking about is the voluntary hospitalizations. That's where we've seen an increase, and that's been very helpful because a lot of times, they're cooperating, and then we can ourselves transport those individuals to the hospital. And the other information I was mentioning before on the next slide is how we were, at one point, if you noticed, LEAs were doing 90%. ICBHS was only doing 10% and the other percentage was very low. And our monthly admissions were 9. So we're hoping that all of this is changing by the interventions and the services that we're providing. Next slide. So this is, for the most part, and I'm gonna say that we have done meetings here and there because all of these steps are mainly across departments. All of us need to be working on specific, but COVID continues to be a barrier in a lot of the coordination. So there have been meetings individually with different departments. Everyone has been interested. I want to say that we see that our regular CCRT meetings are attended by most of the law enforcement agencies. We have meetings with the hospital when things arise, and when there's a need for an MDT, it's called. It's not a recurrent meeting, but they are happening because they know who needs to be at the table, and they get together and discuss those individuals so that we can have some resolution or a plan of what's going to happen to them. So the next slide summarizes all the recommendations made by the RDA, and the 2 in red are the only ones that the Kemper and RDA didn't agree on. For the most part, is the establishment of the CSU and the PUF, and also to transition our current triage unit into an outpatient clinic. So they recommend that we continue with the services, but continue to expand what we're doing. So the next 2 slides are mainly the recommendations from Kemper, aside from, a lot of them are the same, but they continue to say, you need to continue to work. For the most part, they're in agreement with RDA on the steps that have been taken. And we have been following, the roadmap that they provided so that we can improve our continuum of care for individuals that are experiencing psychiatric emergencies. Any questions?
That was fabulous. I just have to say, last October when you were here, I was pretty discouraged. It looked like we had a long, long way to go, and that not a lot had been done, and we were continuing to just see a huge, huge need within our community. So I'm very, very, very pleased and thankful, grateful to you and your department for the great strides and progress that have been made. So I do have some questions, but I'm going to ask first if any of my colleagues, Mr. Oliva, any clarifying questions? Or
No, not at all. I do appreciate you asking staff to have this presentation emailed to us. There's a lot of information here that I will need to make sure I go back and digest, and so I'll pause there.
And feel free to call if you have any questions. Right. I mean, I'm more than glad to go over that. I know it's a lot.
Yes, I appreciate it.
I just really appreciate all the great work, Ms. Blancarte. Many times we see what's before us, right? We see the issue and the problem, but we don't really take the time to take a look at all the steps that need to take place, from assessment, the transportation, the placement, the discharge, the continuum of care, and the linkage. And so many times it's very easy just to look at the problem, but not realizing all the services that need to take place. So thank you so much for giving us a very clear picture, an in-depth picture of the great work that's happening here in Imperial County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvia, did you ask?
Good evening, Ms. Blancarte. So thank you, because I recall, having sat through a couple of these presentations and progress has really been made, and it's significant, to the point. But I just have a couple of questions, going back to something that you said, the hours of operation for law enforcement to be involved, to respond to calls, and then a person from behavioral health. And you said that if a person is available, they will respond. So does that mean that you don't have somebody on call?
Let me explain.
During those
maybe
hours of
I didn't
operation?
go over. So during the hours of operation, which are Monday to Friday from 8 to 10 p.m., there's always staff available.
Oh, okay.
It's only after that schedule, because the numbers were so
Oh,
low
uh-huh.
that if they get a call, let's say at 1 at night,
In the morning.
and that sounds like a mental health call,
Mm-hmm.
then we're saying, call us. If the staff is available, we will respond, even if it's not within the set schedule.
Okay,
And we've
okay.
been responding to all the calls.
You know, one other thing I'm really curious about is, so who transports these patients that are going to these out-of-county facilities? Is the sheriff's office involved with this?
No.
Or?
So historically, we have used ambulance, but
Oh,
because
okay.
of the shortage, we have lost some beds. And depending on how the individual's doing, if we feel we can transport safely, then we use our cage cars so we don't lose the bed. But for the most part, it should be done by ambulance. And we, like I say, we met with the person in charge of the ambulance system, and he understands. We came up with some agreements on, some communication so that they're aware of a potential hospitalization so that they could assist us better.
So-
There's been a shortage across, so I feel for
I
them
know.
too.
It's the great resignation that we're going through right now.
Yes.
You know what I was also curious about? Oh my gosh, it skipped my mind again. So the cost to transport these people, is it absorbed by the behavioral health department?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Must be pretty hefty. So, okay, so that's, those are my
Mr.
questions.
Garcia.
Thank you, Ms. Pancarte.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much for that very thorough presentation. I know that 5150 is an increasing problem for a lot of communities on how to deal with it. And this is a very thorough look at how other counties are doing it, what's feasible for what we can handle, especially regarding our budgetary restrictions. But thank you very much for the information. And I look forward to looking through the presentation again.
And I will note that the presentation has been sent to us from City Clerk's office, so thank you very much. So just want to kind of talk with you about a scenario. The calls to your office then are coming from our dispatch centers? Is that who's dispatching you to the
Yes.
scene? So we've, I've studied this just enough to be dangerous, but so we hear a lot that having an officer on the scene actually can tend to escalate as opposed to de-escalate, in that if maybe the first person that is on scene is someone other than a person in uniform. So, but I don't think that we've evolved to that yet.
I think it depends on the individual. There are calls where the officers actually make the individual comply. And there are cases. So one of the things that will be happening, and I don't know if you've heard of the 988, is a big movement to have this 988 number, like 911, that individuals will be calling that number instead of calling 911 when it's a mental health issue. So at that time, we will be getting those calls, assessing, and then responding. Without the intervention of law enforcement. So I think that one of the things that we're doing with the CCRT and being able to co-respond at this time, it was a very good experience for us to see how a lot of the calls are things that we can resolve, that where law enforcement was not really necessary. But there are calls where the individual is aggressive, is under the influence. I think that's the biggest problem we've seen most recently, that they are just very aggressive, and those are the calls where we don't feel our staff would be able to handle, because we have had many injuries.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention, like, with the new implementation of the CCMU, which is the other teams, I think that will require less intervention from law enforcement. And we wanted to start first with schools that are in a controlled environment, where we're not gonna be needing law enforcement to be present. Only if it's a safety concern, we will be calling them just for assistance. That will be one, and the other one will be at the hospitals as well, in our outpatient clinics. And the only way that we're gonna be activating law enforcement is only when there is a safety concern. So with those two teams, we're hoping that we can spread the word. And then the crisis for response team, I just wanted to mention, based on the experience, many of the individuals, especially in the co-occurring disorders, I mean, just have the presence of law enforcement, it makes it more easier for us to work with them.
Okay.
And then definitely, once we provide any interventions, I mean, we can de-escalate and we can free the officer. Usually it takes like 20 minutes where staff feels comfortable and safe to handle it, and they can just leave and we can take over.
Okay. I was very encouraged about the on-site, the school response. I bet all of us within the last several days have read multiple articles about how difficult the pandemic has been, particularly on our young people, and the mental illness and the depression and different things that are manifesting now. So I think that's fantastic. You give us a lot of numbers with regard to response and trends and everything else, but then you give us the numbers at the end as to how much it would cost us for beds. But are we doing the KPIs in terms of how much money we're saving by having a different approach, a different response? So are we tracking that? Because that's part of the story that
Right.
you're telling here.
And we are saving in hospitalization,
Right.
but we're also expanding in services. So the funds are being used to expand in other areas. I know that right now we're just talking about the crisis continuum of care, but we also have our outpatient clinics where all these individuals get transferred when they need a different level of care. So we have been expanding on the outpatient clinics, where before we have about 37 locations right now, because one of the things we try to do is be closer to the individual. Right now, we're trying to open a clinic in Calapat and another one in Salton City because we know those individuals need access. So we may be saving in one area, but we're also using it to expand services. We're in so many schools. So hopefully we continue to do more of that and less of the crisis.
Kind of following up on a comment question from Ms. Marroquin, when you are transporting individuals out of county, does that require 2 staff members to go? So it's double the cost. Or, and the last question I have, and then I believe, Dr. Edward, you're going to share with us some information. You made multiple references to Alvarado Parkway Institute, API, and them being a partner, and essentially them not being interested in either a CSU or a PUF? A PUF. PHF, so CSU or a PUF. But are we looking at other partners? I mean, we know that UCSD is partnering with ECRMC. We know that it's Scripps or Sharp at Pioneers. I mean, are either of them interested in? No.
I contact every single hospital in San Diego, Riverside County, LA County, and the reason behind it is they already have their own resources and they have already memorandum of understanding with their county, so they don't have to.
So they don't need the overflow
Exactly.
to come to
Yes.
us? Okay.
And then the other thing that we have to consider, Alvarado Park Institute is a freestanding hospital.
Yes.
It's not a medical.
Right.
Which is making it more difficult. Even if we contract with them for dedicated beds, they do have exclusionary criteria, and there might be many of the individuals that will not be able to be admitted because they require higher level of care.
And what about Yuma? I recognize it's another state, but what's
Our
our relationship?
Medi-Cal, most of our clients are Medi-Cal, and Medi-Cal covers in California.
Fantastic. Dr. Edward, thank you very much. That's
Thank you, ladies.
very, very good. There may be additional questions, so.
So I just want to maybe highlight a couple of things because I want to make sure we're clear on what beds we're talking to. These are psychiatric beds that have nothing to do with acute care hospitals. El Centro Regional and Pioneers are not an LPS designated facility and have never been, because the type of staff that you're required to actually care for psychiatric patients is very specialized. Also, we don't have subspecialties like psychiatry and inpatient psychiatric care, and those units have special requirements as well. I want to also highlight that the slide that you saw with the cost does not really cover El Centro Regional Medical Center cost for caring for 5150. On average, we get about 370 plus patients. We were very lucky that during COVID, the 5150 disappeared. We don't know what happened. It was a surprise to all of us. It reemerges again because just up to this year, since the start of our fiscal year, we've seen 95 patients that are 5150. On average, ECRMC spends about $1.75 million. Our reimbursement, don't panic, $62,000. Doesn't cover much of anything. The problem that we're seeing is actually a very complex patient. Some of our psychiatric patients come in with TB, with some other elements that are beyond just psychiatry. We can clear them medically, but to get them out of the hospital, sometimes we find them staying with us for many more days than you've seen on the slide. The answer, because I can share with you that just this week, actually yesterday and today, we spend a lot of time talking to the state about this issue across. We have a mental health crisis in the country, not just the state of California. Our numbers, and I can share with you data that will surprise you, but the good news is our governor is very smart. Let me share with you. In this budget this year, DHCS is investing $2.2 billion for competitive grants to construct, acquire, and rehab real estate assets to expand the community continuum of behavioral health treatment resources. He's also smart that he's allocated an additional $150 million combined with $55 million from the federal funding to support mobile crisis support teams. The DSS, which is another division, is also receiving $805 million to continue to add beds. This county, in our first assessment, and this is a study that's available, I'll make sure that you get it, shows that we actually have a high need for beds. When you combine the needs from San Diego, we're up and upwards of 1,200. As you know, the UCSD system is working actually with the County of San Diego to try to expand availability of inpatient bedded facility. Scripps have proposed a 150-plus bed facility for the city of San Diego as well. So we have a lot of needs. What we really need to look at, and this is something that we had talked with Tony Rahotas, is taking this step further. I love the question that you had, Mayor, about are there other partners out there? What they're referring to is partnerships in those entities that we're talking about, CSU and PUFs and what have you. But we really have got to look beyond them, beyond just Alvarado Park, because there's limitations. It is correct that they're not going to be able to absorb anything. Are there partners beyond that that can allow us to do a public-private partnership agreement that can help us? It's the same model that Patty Mason had proposed as the CEO of UCSD to the county of San Diego and is working right now with a lot of the details that go beyond that. I think what we need to do is actually bring some of those models down here and start to look at them. I'm thankful that the hospital board has appointed Amanda Brook as a trustee to work with us. We're going to work closely with her and the board to showcase some of the things that we really are in need of, because we continue to have folks that come into our ED. And I hope I can paint a picture for you. This happens starting around, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, throughout the whole weekend. And we get folks that want to battle it out with our teams that are trying to care for them. Yep. That becomes disruptive to mom and dad next door, or grandma on the other side, because these are just normal acute care patients that are coming in for chest pain or what have you. So we've got to be able to start to actually allow our emergency room expert to do what we do best. At the same time, we've expanded our substance abuse treatment. As you know, Dr. Mukau has won multiple grants, and we continue actually to push for more grants. So I think I don't want anybody leaving tonight thinking that the mental health crisis has been resolved, because we continue to see it on the inpatient side and in our emergency room. But what you see is a lot of great steps towards progress on all the things that's been discussed. We just need to continue to move forward and continue to pay attention to that, because if we don't, the crisis will get worse.
I know that, Maria, I know that you mentioned, the threat to the safety of your own employees, but I will share with you that sitting as a trustee on the hospital board, I cannot remember a time when I did not see a list of injuries under our HR department report of workers' comp cases that did not include at least one injury to an employee caused by a 5150 patient in the hospital. So it's a definite problem. All right, any questions or comments for Dr. Edward?
I just appreciate the additional comments, Dr. Edward, and what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm understanding as a core message is that our hospitals in Imperial County are doing their very best in addressing this. However, they are not the most appropriate institutions to deal with 5150. And
Absolutely.
so I know you mentioned the number of how many beds would be appropriate for this region, and some other partners out of the region also have a need. So ultimately, where you would suggest this city, this council, in partnership with ECRMC, the direction that we should go in is to create a facility with, I believe, 100 and something beds.
150 beds, yes.
150 beds, and that is the direction that would
Yes.
assist not only our needs here, but potentially provide some assistance to our partners in neighboring counties. Is that correct?
A great initial investment in our mental health needs for the county and beyond. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, appreciate it.
Dr. Edward, you mentioned that the governor has allocated funds. Is this for the next coming fiscal year, or is this?
Just this fiscal year, and
Just this
actually we're
fiscal year.
hearing from Shirley that's just today, she's the deputy director for mental health for the state, that he's looking at the budget for next year because it looks like there's going to be a surplus. I know you all will probably know a lot more about it. He's looking at mental health as continuing to invest in it, and it would be really wise, even after talking with Tony, as a county, that we actually establish beyond the $8 million, we establish a proposal to be able to allocate some down here
that
for
was my
two
next
reasons.
question,
One, a truly healthcare need, but more importantly, it's an economic engine to be able to help us shift some of the mental health requirements for inpatient bedded facility to the appropriate level of care, because they come in trained with their appropriate staff and the care that's required, and it would help actually not just mental health as a department, but the entire county.
So tapping into that funding would at least help us establish a facility here.
Absolutely.
Is the funding going to be ongoing so that it can also help operate the facility?
It is, and I'll send that to you so you can view it. And I'm sure Mayor Pro Tem Tomas, you've got kind of access into some of the committees that are in Sacramento. He's talking to some of the funding committee, the budgeting committee, about continuation of funding, which is good news story. And we heard that at the end of the day. Tomorrow, I think we have another call with Washington SAMHSA, which is the big mental health institution, who's trying to actually say, can we take the model out of California and use it in other states, which is a great thing. It requires investment. And that's what we really, truly need right now, more than anything.
Well, I appreciate your optimism with regard to the state, but I attended a League of California Cities board meeting last week, and we talked about this uptick that we're seeing with regard to crime and all levels. At the same time, we're dealing with all of the 5150 and mental health crises. And I wrote this down. One of the board members said this, that the state has absolutely abandoned their responsibility for mental health in the state of California. And I think that that's the feeling of your elected officials, that the state really has just stepped away from oversight and responsibility, because it's not a city by city, it's not a county by county. This is an issue of statewide concern. And I agree that we have not seen the state step up with a framework or structure to address the crises that we are encountering here in our community. So I appreciate your optimism, Dr. Edward, but we'll
we have failed in what we call mental health parity, because it's not paired to acute care needs.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we've got a lot of work ahead of us in
Yes.
that area.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
And we're not going to put our fire and police departments on the spot, but maybe at a future meeting, they'll come back and tell us how great this program is working with both of your departments. So thank you again. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our consent agenda, which is approval of items 3 and 4. Anyone want to pull either of those items? Disappointing news, Mr. Abraham, that you're not going to be able to spend a whole bunch of money on the Southern Pump Station, but not yet.
Yet, no.
All right. All right. right, the consent calendar passes 5-0. We're going to move on then to item number 5. Discussion necessary action regarding funding allocation for road improvements at Main Street and Dogwood Avenue. Mr. Campos.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. I bring forward a request where we are looking for a partnership with developers as we explore improving the northeast intersection of Dogwood and Main Street. I can pull up a map, but if you recall that, like a map of the area. And give me 1 second.
Yeah, I was looking at that, Abraham, so I'm kind of curious as to what it is that they're asking to improve.
Rendering is beautiful.
Okay. Oh.
It's the file folder in the bottom. You can access it from there. Oh, okay.
So here we go. So this is the northeast corner of Dogwood and Main. You see this yellow building. That's the building that's being proposed for improvement. So what the request is in general is Penske is looking to form a lease with SOS Partners. SOS Partners is interested in buying the property and leasing it to Penske. I do have a representative of the applicant on the line on Zoom, so if you wish to ask some additional questions for the end they'd be happy to participate. They have not submitted a site plan review or a permit with the city right now. They're exploring their options. Penske has provided some information on the facilities, and they're trying to get support from the city for some projects that they would be required from any developer, not just them, at this intersection. Specifically, there's a Dogwood Canal, which you can see here, and there's some traffic signals. Because of the proposed work and the traffic and some existing issues in terms of turning radiuses, that canal would have to be pipelined a little bit to the north to allow for a new lane to be constructed, which would trigger the relocation of the signal light and these other poles that you see on the screen as well. This is more of a regional significance, and we're looking to allocate or set aside for a period of 18 months, basically between now and June 30th of 2023, for any applicant, not only Penske or SOS, but whoever comes first, a partnership where they can come in, do an improvement, provide and revitalize the area. We feel this would be a catalyst for the area, and the city would form a reimbursement agreement with them where they would do the improvements, and we will reimburse back up to $300,000. This is similar to what was done, our previous reimbursement agreement that was done with a fast food chain, In-N-Out, back in 2007, 8, more or less, about for the same amount, and for very similar scenarios. We feel this setting aside this funding in our LTA would provide the opportunity or the incentive to development of this corner, which hopefully would be a catalyst for the area nearby. So with that, unless you have any questions, we do have the applicant here, but I would be looking for support to set aside $300,000 in LTA for an applicant to come back to the city with a project.
And just so we're clear, that's site specific, right?
Site specific.
For that corner, and so this is just a rendering of what maybe.
That's correct. So what you have find in your packet is the proposal that Penske is putting together for the city in terms of what that site would look like. If you would ask, I would welcome a representative from Penske or or SOS Partners if they're on the line to talk a little bit about their project and why we should consider this.
That would be great. I'd also like to see our agenda packet, page 26. You see the snow-capped mountains in the back.
Where is that?
Can we get those as part of the package, please?
I kind of figured that was a facility elsewhere.
Well,
Yes.
if they're available, Mr. Campos, if they could talk a little bit about what the plans are, maybe for that location.
Tom, do you have anybody from SOS or Penske?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Tom DeBose of DeBose Design Group. On the line also with me are the representatives of the Stowe's Partners as well as Penske. They have opened at least a preliminary escrow on this site, which time is starting to run a little bit short on that. This site has some particular improvements that I think, as Abraham had mentioned, are more regional in nature. There are improvements you could argue would probably need to be done today, but this site, if it was to be improved, would add to the necessity of that. And so that was therefore the request of some cost sharing. In regards to the project and Penske truck centers themselves, I think they would be very attractive to the city, and they are online to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you have any specific questions for the potential applicant? Okay, Mr. Oliva.
Yes, Mr. Campos, thank you, Madam Mayor. My simple question is essentially on behalf of the city, on the staff, who will be reviewing and approving the reimbursements that are submitted by Penske or the other party?
The process will involve coming back to council for approval and agreement. The specifics of when the work comes in and how the payments are issued and to who is to be still determined with whoever the applicant is. In this case, hopefully, if Penske or SOS comes in within the 18 months, it would be it. But it brings it makes it an option for anybody to come in. Those terms would be negotiated or agreed with between the developer and the city. Once that agreement is at a staff level approved, we'd come back to city council with a full reimbursement agreement for review and approval as well.
Okay, but it goes through your office first, right?
Correct.
And then from your office, I'm assuming you sign off on it, and then it gets presented here again.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, of course, for legal.
All right, thank you.
All right, any additional questions?
I have a question, and this is more on the logistics of that location. So hypothetically speaking, if we move forward with this project, I noticed that it's very close to an intersection with stoplights.
Mm-hmm.
How would trucks or vehicles exit that facility? Would it be onto Main Street or onto Dogwood, or how would it affect the flow of traffic?
And that's a very good question. So right now they are proposing in the site plan, it'll be a right in, right out of Dogwood. I'm sorry, East Main. So they won't be able to go out and turn a left because of the signals and in the pockets. So it's right in, right out. They would end up either going westerly once they get out and up on Dogwood and eventually go to 111, or if they can cross over, which would be very difficult. Basically, they would continue on West Main until they hit 4th Street and come south.
Yeah, only because, we know that intersection is extremely busy and traveled by a lot of trucks, and so that was my concern.
And that's partly why it's attractive to them, right?
Well, excellent freeway access, either off of Dogwood or 4th Street, so, okay, fantastic. All right, so we have a recommendation to direct staff to set aside $300,000 in LTA funds in current budget as recommended in the agenda report for item 5. We have a motion by Garcia, and we have a second by Mr. Oliva, and that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Tom, great to see you again. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty, let's move on to item number 6 then, and this has to do with the purchase of equipment for the UV disinfection system.
Yes, this is a return of an item. It was budgeted in the previous fiscal year. It did not get rebudgeted this year as we expected the purchase to be completed last fiscal year, but because of the amount, we're coming back to council for approval to rebudget and approve this agreement with Trojan Technologies. This is the final process in the wastewater stream before the water is released to the drains, ultimately to the Salton Sea. And the wastewater stream goes through this UV filters, the UV light, to basically as a final treatment for any bacteria that might be in the waste stream before it is released. The equipment is aging. The one that we have is no longer serviceable, or soon will no longer be serviceable, so we cannot run the risk of being without the equipment. So the request is to purchase this equipment right now, have it in stock, and we'll be installing it later. The equipment is very specific to our system. It will fit right in. We cannot go with other brands because won't be compatible, so we're sole sourcing this item.
Okay,
Any
we'll
questions?
note that this is wastewater enterprise funded, so.
Yes.
All right, additional questions, comments?
You know, I noticed, Abraham, that this company is based out in Canada.
Yes.
Do they have locations in the United States that we would be doing business with, or are we going international here?
So it was the logistics, and I know Betsy will have could speak to it, but the logistics was a little tricky. But they have representatives here as well. We dealt with them quite a bit. It's just because the purchase of the equipment is out of Canada. That's why this is happening. But we are in line and we're good.
But if you're proposing a site visit, I think that we can work something out after.
In July, it'd be nice to go out there.
After the holidays. All right, so we are looking to adopt resolution 21-95. Resolution of the City Council of City of El Centro approving a vendor agreement with Trojan Technologies Group, ULC, for the purchase of equipment for the city's wastewater treatment plant and appropriate $513,039.85 in wastewater enterprise funding. We have a motion and a second, and that passes 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Billion Dollar Man.
Now it's not millions, it's
All right, so now I am really excited about this next item. We have our IT administrator up for item number 7. Chris, this is an excellent policy, very well written. If you could please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm here in regards to our technology policy. The city utilizes technology resources in every department to support the delivery of public services to city residents, businesses, and the community. Technology is a core element to the effective operation of the city. As such, it is important to have standards in place for its proper use to maximize its reliability, integrity, and performance. As with other finite public resources, city staff should be responsible stewards of these resources. Now, although we have some policies or standard operating procedures currently in place, it was necessary to compile a complete policy, which needs to be noted, it has been reviewed and commented by and approved by the JPIA. The technology policy puts in place rules and expectations for responsible use of city technology resources. And I think it was about 22 pages, and so I'm going to just start from the top and read through it. So I feel that would be only fair.
Yeah, your 60-slide presentation.
Yeah.
Give us a synopsis, Chris.
Synopsis, I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
So this policy does include acceptable use, prohibited use, email etiquette, network access, passwords and their protections, remote access, hardware and software requirements, cybersecurity, data storage and retention, technology purchases, and of course, no expectation of privacy, just to touch on a few topics. And last but not least, I wanted to mention that we are currently working on a schedule of training because this is a very large and in-depth policy with lots of information. And so we're currently working on training, especially in cybersecurity. Just kind of on a side note on the cybersecurity, we're currently running a 24/7 monitoring service right now. And so we are covered there. But our users do need to know and understand this policy. And so with that, short, sweet, to the point.
Outstanding. Questions, comments? Mr. Oliva?
I have one, yes. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, you promised me that you were going to.
I know. I told him I had a few curveballs for him, and so I promised I'd make it easier because he gave me back my iPad.
I did. I helped you with that.
So thank you.
Okay.
No, my comments are that I really think that this new policy in relations to information technology is essential today. I will tell you the first time I started working for government, I was told in regards to the email program that we had was, if you are comfortable with whatever you're sending being printed in tomorrow's paper, go ahead and hit send. If not, don't do it. because, as you said, there is no expectation of privacy as it relates to every email that gets. So me personally, just personal point of practice, I don't like emailing coworkers with, so what are we having for lunch? Where are we gonna go? Because that is not a use of what I would imagine the general public feels that they're, in that case, state or federal taxes should go to, right? And then moving forward, now in my day job, I'm required to take cybersecurity training, ethics training, and workplace rights training every year, right? And as much as I have to take cybersecurity training, I was actually almost a victim of cybersecurity here at the city. And that's that I consider myself pretty well trained as it matters. And so for those of you that don't know the story, somebody created an email account and portrayed the Madam Mayor and sent me an email asking me to do something. And I quite honestly thought, sure, I mean, if the Madam Mayor is asking me to do something, I'll do it,
Well,
right?
let's be specific. It was to purchase cards.
Correct. It was to
Some kind
purchase.
of-
It was to purchase iTunes gift cards, and again.
And he thought, she doesn't know what an iTunes is,
No,
let
you know
alone a
what?
gift card.
I was
That couldn't
thinking,
possibly be right.
in my mind, and this going again, and the whole purpose of the story is to show that our cybersecurity is as strong as our weakest link, right? And so I was kind of psyching myself out because in my head I thought, oh, she's probably going to have it for a raffle, or she's going to, gift it to someone that she feels she needs to, right? And so all I knew is she's asking me for a favor, I'm going to do it, right? And so I did everything the cybersecurity training told me. I emailed her back to her email, I called her, I texted her, and it just so happens, and I knew that she was in New York at the time, so I thought, well, maybe she's not able to get a hold of me. So I ended up going to get the cards, right, at Target, but I didn't send them because something told me something was off. And again, this goes back to the training, something was off, right? And because I honestly thought to myself, if she really needed, I'm pretty sure she would have called Steve. I'm pretty sure she would have called, right? Like
My
her
husband.
sons, right? I'm like, I don't know. So those things were what triggered, and all the training told me, if you have those kinds of flags, check first, right?
That's correct.
So going back again, I was, thankfully, I didn't send them. Target was greatly gracious and refunded the money, right? But I've had it where people, I've had instances where people have called my office and said, hey, we're calling from house services, and we're doing an inventory check. Can you please go to your printer and give me the IP address, right? And that immediately just says, you know what, send me an email. If you're from house, whatever, send me an email. That way I can verify and whatnot. Like those are all the types of things that I know because of these trainings. And so I don't think we've had this type of training at the city level.
Not yet.
We've had a lot of our partners, major institutions that have been subject to ransomware. And so we have to understand that we are susceptible to things, and that criminal element is always going to move the goalposts. So it's important for our staff to be aware of what's out there and how things operate, especially because if we don't live those kinds of lives, we don't know what it is, but we need to be aware. So thank you for bringing this before us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And those phishing emails are very tricky. And that's what they're designed to do. They're designed to spoof an individual that you know and trust. And we get those kinds of emails, and 99% of them here are blocked. But when they use like a Gmail account, it's hard to just pick up on stuff like that. But you're correct. That's when you say our users are where we really need to focus.
Likewise, for myself, working for a large research institution, a university, we go through extensive training because we're always at risk for the research that's being done in our institution. In addition, working with student files, of course, that always puts us at risk. So every year, like yourself, Mr. Olivas, we have to go through certified training 3 times. There's 3 specific trainings, and on top of that, we have dual certification. So if I am logging on a computer other than my desktop, so even if it's my iPad, if it's my telephone, I automatically have to have the dual certification that it's myself and it has a code. So I think that this is just as important, that the information that we have here at the city is as valuable, and it also very, puts us in a position where we're at risk. And so we need to make sure that we are all protecting the information that's being shared. So thank you for that.
So what was really weird is like 2 weeks after that whole thing, I got the same email from the chair of the CalCog board asking me to do the same. And I'm like, yeah, no, not doing that. I was a little confused about the email retention. And I know that when we get requests for either litigation holds or Public Record Act requests, that sort of thing. So are you going to have training specific for us on the email retention? Because for me, once I respond, boom, it's gone, it's deleted. I don't keep a whole lot of stuff.
If that's what you would like to see in some of the trainings, absolutely.
Yeah, I
And see,
think
that's
this-
the other part of that training is,
Yeah.
is I could give trainings on anything. It's
Yeah.
just what is important. If that's something that you would like
Yeah,
to see,
I think,
yes.
I think in particular for us, the stuff that we get, because it may be responsive either in litigation or a Public Record Act request, that training for us on the email retention would be really great. Okay. Well done, very well done. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 21-96, resolution of the City Council of City of El Centro adopting our technology use policy. And that item there passes 5-0. Outstanding. Thank you so much. We're moving on now to agenda item number 8, which is the final adoption of our vision, mission, and value statements, followed by item number 9, which is our strategic plan.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. I am very, very happy to be before you to present to you our vision, mission, and values. And the reason why I'm so happy is because for the past 2 years, we've been working on revisiting our vision, mission, values. Our mission statement had not been reviewed for 20 years. So I'm very happy that we've reached this milestone. A lot of work has been done in conjunction with obviously the task force that was formed by the council to help with the strategic plan. A lot of input from our city staff, from members of the public. So we're very happy to be here before you with this item. So I just have 3 slides, basically, just to summarize what our vision is going to be and what we hope council will adopt as our vision moving forward for our city. And basically we envision an El Centro that is a thriving and welcoming community, advancing partnerships that boost the economy and enhance sustainability. And for the first time, we are using this theme that El Centro is the heart of the valley. And I think we talked about how important it is for us that as a community, obviously as members of this organization, as staff, we do our job with a lot of heart, a lot of love, and we are happy that we're able to do what we do for our community. In terms of the mission, our mission is to deliver exceptional services and opportunities that enable a vibrant and resilient community for residents, businesses, and visitors while celebrating our rich culture and diversity. Again, acknowledging that we serve a community that is made up of residents, businesses, and visitors, of course. And we know that we have a diverse culture here in our community. So very happy to come up with this mission. In terms of our values, we identified that as values, we have compassion as a value for us, basically a positive response and desire to help with an inner motivation to lessen or prevent suffering of others. Economic opportunity, the creation of opportunities from which community benefits are realized. It is more than a jobs program. It is an investment in growing your economy and enhancing the prosperity and quality of life for residents. Sustainability, the ability to be sustained, supported, upheld, or confirmed. It improves the quality of our lives, protects our ecosystem, and preserves natural resources for future generations. Diversity and inclusion, the capacity to appreciate and value individual differences, involvement and empowerment, where the inherent worth and dignity of people are recognized, a sense of belonging, and promotes an inclusive environment that affirms the value of people. And finally, we want to be a community that is known for being happy, a sense of well-being or contentment, the state of being happy and peaceful, feelings of joy, pleasure, tranquility, and comfort. And I think that all of these are encompassed and reflected in everything that we do, again, coming from you as our leaders of this community, and also from our staff, that we take a lot of joy in what we do and caring for our community, obviously with the resources that we have. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those, but very, very pleased with the final product that we have here before you in terms of our vision, mission, and values.
Fantastic. If there are no questions, we're looking for a motion to adopt the city's vision, mission, and enhanced value statement. Whoopsie. Our ballot moved. And that is adopted 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Very good work, Ms.
Thank you.
Piedra.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to then the adoption of our strategic plan.
Yes, so again, quite the milestone here. This was a process that we started about 2 years ago, and finally to be able to present our updated strategic plan for the next 5 years, covering 2022 through 2027. A lot of work, future work that we have ahead of us. Very excited to be moving on to this next 5-year cycle. A lot of input, again, from the community, from obviously the task force. We did open up for a public review period for the public to have an opportunity to look at our draft strategic plan. We didn't receive any additional comments, but a lot of, again, public input was provided throughout this process. So just in summary, there's basically 6 strategic plan goals that we're going to be using to guide us moving forward with our efforts. One of them is, the first one being financial and governance stability and sustainability. And what do we mean by this, or what's the focus here, is to foster fiscal health through disciplined long-term planning, cost control, heightened efficiency, increased revenue and cost recovery, while providing high-quality services through a commitment to local government best practices. Our goal number 2, related to environmental sustainability and infrastructure. Our goal here is to ensure the city's infrastructure is enhanced and maintained to support the existing and future development through innovative and sustainability principles. Goal number 3, community health, safety, and welfare. Our goal here is to promote and protect the health and safety of our community through high-quality services. Goal number 4, recreation and lifelong learning. Offer opportunities for recreation and lifelong learning through innovative, inclusive programming, parks, and facilities that serve all residents and visitors. Goal number 5, city beautification, engagement, and civic pride. Enhance the quality of life in El Centro by promoting community engagement and investing in new opportunities that foster civic pride and city beautification through community accountability. And finally, goal number 6, economic opportunity. Strengthen El Centro's resilience by diversifying the economy, recruiting new businesses, creating opportunities for business growth, retaining businesses, and maximizing efficiency. A lot of these goals are aligned with the previous goals that we had. It continues being the focus of what we do. As you know, every year we do provide an update, and that's the plan, is that we would come back to you a year after approval and see where we are in terms of these action plans that basically encompass each of these goals. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those. Just in summary here, the public outreach, again, no comments were received. We did provide hard copies and had them available at the library, at the community center, City Hall, but we didn't receive any additional comments.
Very good. Questions, comments, clarifications? Could we have hard copies provided to the council as well?
Yes.
Following adoption. Okay. All right, folks, time to adopt the City of El Centro Strategic Plan for 2022 through 2027. And that is adopted 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Very well
Thank you
done.
very much.
Very, very well done.
Great work.
Okay, we are coming up now on item number 10. It dawned on me as we were teeing up this item that I forgot to request the report out of closed session. So if you would like to do that at this time, so two things, the report out of closed session, and then we just wanted to make a comment that there have been modifications made to the resolution, and we will ask our city attorney to talk through what those modifications are, and then return back for, I have 2 speaker slips as well as comments here off the dais. So, Ms. Martin, please.
During closed session, the city council again discussed labor negotiations, and you did in fact discuss the modifications that are contained in resolution number 21 dash whatever to add certain employees employed between March 4th, 2020 and July 31st, 2021 to those who would be receiving the $3,000 one-time payment.
January 31st.
Of 2021, yes.
Okay. That's consistent with the direction given with regard to the modifications. We were all in agreement with that. Very good. So at this time, if there are no initial comments, I am going to ask Abraham Campos, followed by Anthony Plancarte. Did you want to speak to this item?
Mayor, we have item number 10. It's also a resolution. It's for the
Right.
one-time payment.
Right, and I have a couple of
Oh, okay.
Well, they're
public
talking about-
comments. They want to comment on this one.
I think Dulcie might have a staff report.
Oh, sorry,
That's
Dulce. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right.
Okay, good
Sorry,
evening.
Dulce.
That's okay, no problem.
Welcome.
So good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. As we discussed right now, I'm here to request and the approval for a one-time payment for city employees. And since we already discussed too that it was amended, the resolution was amended after the discussion in closed session. The fiscal impact for this would be $676,000 with a new amendment. And basically, it's going back to the ARPA funds. We received $14,095,734, in ARPA funds. At various meetings over the past several months, the city council has allocated a portion of those funds for various capital acquisitions, such as fire engines and improvement projects. Funding for these projects has freed up general funds that may be used for other purposes. A number of other Imperial County cities and throughout California have used such savings to make one-time payments to city employees in active service throughout the term of the pandemic. Defined as of March 4, 2020, the date on which the Governor Newsom declared a statewide emergency through December 13, 2021, and were hired on or before January 31st, 2021. The purpose of this one-time payment is to recognize the difficulties of working as designated essential workers during the portion of the COVID-19 pandemic. After discussion, the council agreed upon a lump sum for all regular employees as defined in the resolution of $3,000 and for part-time employees of $1,500. That lump sum would be paid on the second payroll of December, which would be December 17, 2021. And taxes and purse contributions will be deducted as applicable. In conclusion, approve resolution of the City Council of the City of Centro authorizing one-time payments to city employees for continuing service during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Okay, I did want to make the clarification that for purposes of this resolution only, this was added at the request of the City Council. For purposes of this resolution only, members of the City Council are not deemed to be included within the definition of city employees and are therefore ineligible for the one-time lump sum payment. This time we'll have Mr. Campos, followed by Mr. Plancarte.
Good evening again. I just wanted to come in on behalf really of Public Works and myself and the rest of the Public Works family and team to express my thank you for this token of appreciation of the hard work that has been done by staff. And not only Public Works, but I'm sure that as a city as a whole, there has been a great deal of sacrifice on COVID coming into work. Many have contracted COVID throughout outside or whatever reason, right? And we found ways, and staff has found ways to be here and keep providing for the public, keep the services open, keep it as status quo, provide that sense of calm, so that all the services and Public Works services continue to function. That token is of appreciation for that hard work and dedication for our employees is welcome, and I just wanted to express the thank you on my behalf, and I'm sure on Public Works' behalf.
Thank you so much. Appreciate those comments. Mr. Plancarte, did you just want to register your agreement, or did you want to speak as well?
Well, I really want to speak. However, the amendment has satisfied my concern, so I appreciate for you guys taking into consideration for proposing it, and thank you so much.
Very good. All right, with that, we are looking for adoption of Resolution 21-97, resolution of City Council of the City of El Centro authorizing a one-time payment to city employees for continuing service during the COVID-19 pandemic. This will be the revised resolution that was presented. Very good. That is adopted 5-0. So again, thank you all very much. And this is a sign of how much we do appreciate you as the council and the hard work that you put in under very, very, very trying circumstances. So you are appreciated every day for what you do. So thank you. We're going to move on to our legislative action. Betsy?
Yes, Madam Mayor, even though it says none, in fact, at the last meeting, you did ask for an update on ACA 7, which is the Assembly Constitutional Amendment that basically says that any new fee is a tax and has to be voted on.
¿Está abierto? ¿Tú qué quieres, mamá?
Can we mute whoever is not? Wow.
That was commentary by a child on
There we go.
ACA 7.
Okay.
Pretty negative.
Betsy, continue.
ACA 7 is in reaction to the belief that public agencies raise their fees for no good reason, just to get more money. You ask for our opinion. I've talked with the city manager. We agree with the league to withhold any approval or disapproval. I'm not sure it'll qualify. I think that the problem with it is it could cause an opposite reaction as some of the redevelopment pushes did, and that it would cause a greater loss of local autonomy. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle as to what should be local and what should not. And we also agree with the league, and Marcella can add into this, that the causes of homelessness and unaffordable housing are far more complex than could be fixed by legislation, which is what the legislature has basically tried to push the problem onto cities and counties. Do you want to comment as well, Marcella? I think maybe talk about the funding.
Well, just to kind of add, I mean, I think one of the things that has been really detrimental to us has been just the dissolution of redevelopment agencies and that funding. I mean, we obviously are getting approached by the development community about affordable housing and just offering different types of funding. And at this point, I mean, it's hard. And in talking to Betsy, I think that if we could promote trying to bring something back, when we had redevelopment agencies, they were the second largest funder for affordable housing. And so I think that has really created an impact in terms of housing, particularly in the area of affordable housing. So I think, those are some of the areas where we can definitely try to advocate to see what can be done at the state level because it's just been very difficult for us as local agencies to provide any assistance. I mean, we do go after funding at the state level through home, but it is very competitive. And so that creates a lot of hardship for us. And that's all I would like to add, Mayor.
I believe that everyone received the summary of the actions taken by the Cal Cities Board at our last meeting. To follow up on something that you mentioned, Ms. Piedra, that was also mentioned at the Cal Cities Board meeting, the state of California is sitting on $31 billion of a budget surplus and has not allocated back to the cities any of that surplus for housing projects. And so, we get criticized for not doing our fair share with regard to housing, and yet we're kind of lacking the leadership, I believe, to get something done. So, anyway, we will keep you updated with regard to ACA 7 at this time. Cal Cities Board and Mr. Garcia was there present as well. We are not taking a position, but we are opposing the initiative
Tax
if it
Accountability
qualifies.
Act. Yeah.
Right, so let's move on because we do have a speaker, Karina Alvarez, so I'm gonna join you in. We have an update on the Downtown Facade Improvement Program. And then I'd like you wanted to talk about downtown beautification. So after the presentation, can we have you come up for your comments? Is that all right?
I can just make the comments.
Oh, okay, very good.
So pretty much, I just wanted to thank you for implementing this and how amazing has been to work with the staff and work with the contractors that have been provided. It's still not completed, but how they have been on us to make sure that we do not drop the ball, and I consider myself one of them. Here I am giving all these funds, and I'm still dropping the ball and not choosing, just choosing, basically. So you could already tell the changes, even though it's not complete, but it's already looking much better, brighter, much more light. The paint, you can tell. And we're just waiting for signs and complete it. So please, if you can expand this and continue it, we will really appreciate it. I'm hoping, we were commenting about how there is a new business coming into the corner of 4th and Main. And let's hope that this beautification is attracting new tenants, new businesses, and pretty much it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will come back when it's completed.
Very good.
Thank you.
Send pictures. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Council. I just wanted to provide an update on the Downtown Facade Improvement Program. A while back, Mayor Cheryl Villegas Walker implemented an ad hoc committee group to work on the downtown area. One of the first initiatives from the group was the establishment of a downtown facade improvement program. Some seed money was definitely $125,000 in Measure P funding was allocated for this in May. And since then, we worked on the guidelines and then started the implementation. So I will say that there was substantial demand for this program. 48 applications were submitted. Obviously, we didn't have funding for all 48 applications to be funded, but we started with 8. And so tonight, I just want to show you some of the improvements that have been made. The first 8 are included here. So Gold Exchange, Karina Alvarez was a great beneficiary of this program, who has also Shaolin Kung Fu as one of her properties, Viennese Closet, Yoli's Antiques, Surf Pro also belongs to the same family as Ms. Alvarez, Amelia's Hair, and Imperial Printers. So the first one that was completed was Imperial Printers. Substantial improvement there from what they had to what it is now. It's just a fresh coat of paint. The Kung Fu place, this is the before. This is one of the 2 properties that belong to Ms. Alvarez. and they're right next to each other. This is the before, and here's the after. You can see the new sign. There's an additional sign on the other side. The underside of the canopies is also painted. I just couldn't fit everything in the slides, but you can see the before and afters. This is Amelia's Hair Salon, 528 West Main. And this is their after, again, just very clean and bright, and you can really tell the difference. And this one, we were able to capture the underside of the canopy, which also very substantial improvement.
Was the lighting there before, or is the lighting new as well?
Yes, this sign is a lit sign for Amelia's Hair. So a lot of the designs for the new signage include lighting, which is
Excellent.
also creates a more attractive business center.
Absolutely.
And it just also provides just another element of attraction when you're driving by or walking by. Some of them also include signage in the underside of the canopy.
Well, it adds to a sense of security, the more
Yes,
well lit
as well,
it is. So-
as well. Yeah, and we have the street lighting, which is really bright as well, but it doesn't showcase the business the way a sign does for the business. Yoli's Antiques, this is, the before was just, they had a blank canvas. The signage actually looks much better in real life. The lighting here wasn't as desirable. And it included the Laguna Downtown Plaza. There are various tenants in there. And so each of the tenants now has their separate signage. So it looks, again, it was already nice, and it was just an added element. This one is Lonnie Main's Gold Diamond Exchange. This is the before. It doesn't have any pictures on the underside of the canopy, but there was a lot of damage to the exterior of the facade, and so a lot of that had to be repaired. This is the after, going back to our color scheme, which I think in this building scheme really showed up very, very well. That area just looks a lot cleaner. It's a really large building, and this one I believe includes 3 tenants. Sweets and Treats, I believe Mr. Richards, and then the locksmith, and then Lonnie's, so actually maybe 4.
And look at how beautiful that landscaping looks.
Yes,
with
and
the
that was another
modifications.
improvement that
Right.
was done by the city. Last fiscal year, we had some money that had not been used, and so we used that to make those improvements to the downtown area. All the landscaping was enhanced, new DG, and a lot of the trees were removed to clean it up a little bit. And there was a lot of trees obstructing the buildings, and so it just really cleaned up the area and opened it up so it was more visible. So this is another zoomed in version of the other side on 6th Street. V&A's Closet, before you couldn't really see her store very well. It lacked the delineating features. And now with the new signage, you can I see her clothing store. The awning is just an extra element that makes the building pop a little bit more. And then there's that additional detail for pedestrians with the protruding sign. Again, going back to the installations for the landscaping, you can see they just rigged up the DG. Before, you would see a lot of the irrigation was exposed, and the weed blanket was also exposed. And so now with the new DG, the weed blanket, you can no longer see it. Irrigation's no longer exposed. And then it's a lot of the same shrubbery, just trimmed down a little bit. And Executive Landscape has been working with us in making some of these improvements. And we've been in communication, and we've worked with them to make sure that they keep up with this type of aesthetic, to just trim them down. Other things that the team has been working on, this approach has not been singular. It's not just economic development. There are other features like the security that has been implemented by IT and the police department. Public Works recently put up the Christmas lights and all the other features. So this is definitely a team effort, and I feel in many ways it's paying off. We are seeing new businesses. Farmers Insurance is going to be locating on that corner. I don't know if you've seen on 4th and Main where the pharmacy used to be. And so we think that that's another improvement. Recently heard the Old Tommy's is going to be rehabbed for a potential bar/restaurant. And so seeing that type of activity, also the Vibe is where the spot used to be, is a new location. And so we're hopeful that doing these improvements is catapulting the downtown to the thriving place we want it to be. And so we thank you. It's been a lot of work for the team, economic development team, to work with every single merchant, but they've done a great job, and it has taken us a little bit longer. A lot of it has to be with the signs and the manufacturing of the signs, and they're also really busy. And so we're not always, at the first ones in line. There are other business who are waiting also. So that's taken a little bit of time, but overall, it's been challenging, but really, really rewarding. Say that. And then we're currently working on exploring the use of CDBG funds for the area. Right now we're in the research phase about whether we'll have to income qualify or we can just do it by area. And so that's something that we're currently working on. Preliminarily, we have at least $135,000 that we can allocate towards this program. And then we're also working on potential lighting for the town square. You may recall that we have the neon lighting. We're trying to see if we can change that to LED. And we met, thanks to Abraham, with a lighting designer. And hopefully it's a product that we can use that's affordable and long-lasting. So that's another thing that we're working on. And that's pretty much it. Any
We
questions?
have a marquee downtown, don't we?
Yes, it's another item that it's been out of commission for a while. The marquee at the time, the technology in terms of signage has changed a lot. And so what we have is really dated. And the town square is one of those pieces of internally, is it a park? Is it public works? So it's always gets. So Abraham and I now sometimes meet and we're like, okay, what are we gonna do about this with the town square? Depending on what it is, we kind of go back and forth on, what department's gonna take care of it. So
And
that's where we're at.
they didn't last all that long, but you may recall that when we constructed the arches on either end of downtown on Main Street, at the very top, they were designed to have flags along the top. And it really made it pop and set it off.
So a while back, Mark Limon from Public Works went up there and got the measurements, or one of his team members got the measurements. And we couldn't find a flag provider that met the specification of the flagpoles because they're teeny tiny little. And we get a lot of catalogs, but
Right.
So it was one of those things that someone had to make it. And so with all of the other things that we have, it just hasn't been the number one priority. Hey, let's get the flags up there. But that was one of the things that we want to do. I want you to know that. It's just we couldn't find a manufacturer that met that size of flag.
Okay.
But
It's
the
on
work
list.
was initially started.
Okay. Very good, very cool.
That's on that.
I do want to extend our gratitude to both members of the Downtown Improvement Committee for your hard work this past year. It's been outstanding. And I'm going to open it up for comments or from either of you, please.
I would just like to thank everyone for supporting these efforts. When we started our first initial meeting, the theme was to bring sunshine to the downtown area. That was really the driving force. I think once you own it, right? Once you name it, you own it. And from there, having the insight and hearing from our residents who came to our council meeting and truly were ready for action steps. We had meetings, we received the feedback, and we moved forward. And I'd like to thank the council, my fellow council members, for your support in allowing us to venture into this facade improvement and being able to reinvest in our community and invest in our business owners. And at the end of the day, it's a win-win for all of us. So thank you for that support.
I would just like to thank, the Economic Development Team and Public Works, for really making this a priority for us. And unfortunately, it's just like, even though $135 or $125 sounds like a lot of money, it really doesn't go a long way. So I'm really hoping and praying that we can obtain some of the CDBG funding to continue this, because we've got to keep the momentum going. And I think, the community has started to notice, the improvements that have been occurring. I just have to commend staff for the gold exchange place, that, because, as I was looking at it, it's next to the Resaca, which then enhanced, that area, to make it more inviting, to the community and feel safer, and especially with the lighting, that we have, and hopefully in the future that we can add. And, aside from that, thank you to the police department as well for the security cameras, because I think that'll make residents feel even more welcome into the downtown area, and I think that it has kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for, shoot away, you know, some of the elements that were hanging out in the downtown area, and you know, I think that that's probably, you know, moved them out of that area because of all of the enhancements and the lighting. So thank you, Adriana. It's
It's a team
and
effort.
Abraham, it's-
Sylvia, I stand up here and telling you this, but this is, you know, day in, day out, communicating with Thompson on, you know,
Yes.
sometimes what I think are crazy ideas, but sometimes they work. So I'm like, okay, Thompson, you're right. So,
You know, I
the
just-
trash cans, little things that I think have made a big.
I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah,
because
I mean, it's
I
one
know
of those
that
things-
I got a complaint about the removal of the trash cans, but after I spoke to Sergeant Thompson and what was behind that, you know, and how they were being used, it's just like, okay, you know what, that was a reasonable removal, you know, and so, you know, these business owners also have to be responsible, you know, for their share of the costs, you know, to dump trash. And so, you know, thank you. I don't know if you received any comments or complaints? or-
Today we were out there. That's actually how I saw Karina, the pawn shop on Main on 4th. Was asked to inquire about what was going on, and so I went out there. Thompson was also out there, and that's how we spoke to Karina about some of the changes. And he said, "Yeah, after we moved them going back, it's a lot cleaner." And so, you know, it's a trial period. If the overwhelming majority want us to bring them back, we will. I think it would have to be a modified trash can, 1, 2, not as much concentration of them, to eliminate some of the issues that we had with the waste just all over the sidewalks and the storm drains.
And I'm also really pleased that it's attracting new businesses into the downtown area. You know, that's one of the goals that I had is like, because I know that they can probably attain a location for a lower cost than what they're paying in other areas of the commercial areas of the city. So thank you, everybody, for all the hard work that you've put into it, and Adriana for thinking outside of the box. You know,
You're
because I
welcome.
admire
Hey,
people that
they're not
have,
always my ideas,
you know.
but if I can help, I'll help.
Very
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much. Let's move on to our update of our Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan implementation.
Okay. So Mayor, here we go on the 2008 Parks and Rec Master Plan. So this was approved, it's been a while, 2008, we're in 2021. I was thinking back, this is when I had just graduated from college, so
Oh
it's
my
been a
gosh.
while. So this plan included many recommendations for the facilities, not just park, but also public facilities that we have, including maintenance and operations. It was very well done, very thorough plan, if you had an opportunity to take a look at it. And they considered a lot of the community in creating the plan. And I will say that even though it was 2008, a lot of the sentiment that was shared by the community still remains today. A lot of the parks, the comments were about security, homelessness, and this was in 2008. And so we still have some of those concerns. Maintenance was also something that was commented. But I will say that there has been tremendous progress that was made from 2008 to 2021. I hope you were able to see that in some of the tables that were provided. The first phase, they said within the next 5 years. I wish it would have all happened, but it's happened. So they referred a lot to the Adam Indoor Sports Complex and the entire Adams Avenue corridor, which now is completely finished. And I'll just go over some of the photographs, which kudos to our council and councils before who really have prioritized quality of life in the community. But this corridor alone reflects a $21 million investment for the city. So the MLK Sports Pavilion at $6 million, the skate park that was funded through a grant at about $3 million, and then the aquatic center, which was an $18 million facility, which shows. And so that level of rehabilitation has also helped extensively along the Adams Avenue corridor, where you've seen a lot of rehabbed motels that now have been turned to SRO, single room occupancy, and have greatly improved that area. And so other improvements that have occurred at existing parks include Buckland Park. There have been various phases of this funded through Measure P and I believe other funding sources at about 1.1 million, and still more to come that we're working on. These are just some of the elements that were included. The ramadas did not look like this before. The restroom that was rehabilitated, the sidewalk along the playground area, and then other elements that just added to the playfulness of the park. Carlos Aguilar, we do plan on doing a ribbon cutting when this last phase is completed, but there's basketball courts that are well lit, gated, new soccer field that was completed that we're still working on, and then new restroom, snack bar, also walking path, and then a rehab playground. There's some other ones. This is the McGee Park Playground, which includes a new playground and also restroom, snack bar. We just did the ribbon cutting recently for the restroom, snack bar. Very beautiful amenities for children. And then this one, these are more recent playgrounds that were recently completed. This one to the right that you see is a new playground at Swarthout. We're trying out, it's a faux turf surfacing. Usually you see the other type of surfacing, which is a rubberized surfacing. And we're trying out this faux turf and see how well it does. It's shaded as well, so we hope we don't have any problems with the heat. But it looks beautiful, it's durable, and I'm a neutrals kind of person, but learning with kids that they love color. And so, I've learned to even shift my mindset when you're working with kids. They love to see different kind of colors. And so other parks that were not included as part of the master plan, but were recently constructed include First Responders Park and Plank Park. First Responders Park includes various amenities that were listed in other parks, such as inclusivity. And so that First Responders Park illustrates that best. Also includes an exercise station, selfie swings, and it's just a beautiful park in the facility that the community really enjoys. Plank Park also includes a lot of desert demonstration elements, which are listed as part of the Parks Master Plan, has bioretention, and this was partially funded through a grant and Measure P funds, and is very, very loved by that neighborhood. And then parks that we're currently working on that were also listed in the Parks Master Plan include Buena Vista, and so we're working on the construction now of this. We're currently in design phase and working towards construction next year. And this park also has some Measure P funding in the amount of $115,000 for the basketball court. So it's got a walking trail, playground, basketball court, and it's going to be a really nice amenity for the Buena Vista community. This next one is a major rehab of Gomez Park. It's going to include a great amount of features, such as multi-purpose courts, different playgrounds for different age groups, a small amphitheater, a fitness area, walking path, and then a zip line. So we're hopeful we should be hearing from the state on this park very, very soon. And we're excited about what that means for the Gomez Park neighborhood community. And it's also adjacent to our fire station. So it would be great for our firefighters to have a place to train and then to interact with some of the communities. So we're excited about that. And then this is one of the recent ones that was listed in the plan. This is just a concept that was drawn up recently. And we're thinking the project like this would be approximately $1 million, something that's been discussed for a long time, the dog park. And so we're in the concept phase, but it's something that maybe could be a great asset to the community. And I think one of the things the big picture, at least for us, is that we have the standard of 5 acres per 1,000. And so if you look at that acreage, we're short on park space. However, balancing new parks versus maintaining existing parks is one of the things that we just have to be careful with, because we do not have a lot of staff to maintain our existing parks. And our ball fields are heavily, heavily used by the community, whether it's soccer, baseball, football. And so they also draw on a lot of people, which is great as well. But I think, at least for me, the priority and the plan as well is to focus on maintaining existing facilities versus growing. And yet I show you slides of parks that are coming. And so some of them are rehab, some of them are existing space. But overall, we see great use in the parks and people really seem to be enjoying them. Also through the strategic plan, learned that people are really happy that we've made improvements to our parks. And so I think that's great. And then I guess just moving forward, maintaining and rehabilitating parks, if we could consider that a priority. I think of Stark Field and how that park could be better used and better maintained, needs a new parking lot, new lighting, et cetera. And so those are things, that's my personal recommendation to you all, but anything that you move forward with, obviously we'll support. And that's pretty much it.
Outstanding. All right. Questions or comments with regard to the master plan? Okay. Great to see the two things that most recently with regard to parks that have come my way. Dog park, I get that all the time. Dog park, dog park, dog park, and pickleball courts.
Yes.
We
Huge right now.
have got to do pickleball courts somewhere.
So the multi-purpose courts that I just said for Gomez Park include pickleball, and I believe there's 4
Awesome.
allocated. No, 2 allocated. And so that would encompass that. We also had heard bocce. First Responders Park includes bocce.
Yes.
So we've been slowly tackling at everyone's favorite hobby.
So when the grandkids were down for Thanksgiving, took them to Buckham Park to see the improvements there, took them to Plank Park, and they loved First Responders Park. I mean,
Every kid does.
Oh my gosh.
You know, my daughter says, "Can we go to the park in El Centro, mommy?"
Yeah.
No offense to my husband, but I say, I know, honey, it's a better park.
And, I'm a huge believer in kudos and credit where credit's due. And I just want to thank again, Mr. Garcia, for, that really was his baby, and making sure that park became a reality. So, Mr. Garcia, very well done. Thank you for that. If there are no additional questions or comments, we're going to thank you for both of those updates. As I was cleaning through my files, just so you know, I came across my bicycle master plan. I'm going to provide that to you next. That was supposed to be updated every 2 years, and we haven't gotten around to that yet, but that'll be the next thing. Do you have it? Okay, then it's coming your way. Okay, we have 3 informational items. Betsy, I did not see the claims included for those.
I don't believe they were. We'll place them on the next closed session agenda.
Yeah, just so we can have a further understanding, but we do have both of those as informational items. Any additional public comments? Seeing none, we'll do a quick round of briefings.
A brief round of briefing?
Brief round of briefings. Mr. Garcia, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just briefly, are we doing our task force reports
Yes,
now?
please.
I attended with, of course, Mayor Walker, the Board of Directors meeting for Cal Cities. It was a wonderful experience. We went over basically the goals and plans, as well as the issues that are facing cities all across California. And it was enlightening, to say the least, but we all share a common bond when it comes to the challenges that face cities, and it's great to see an organization like Cal Cities getting us all together from all walks of life in order to discuss strategic plans to go forward, and also all of the challenges that we're currently facing with coming out of the pandemic, and how we're going to stimulate the economy going forward. So I'll leave the rest to Mayor Walker, because I know she has a lot to do with that organization. But unfortunately, I did miss the tree lighting and the Christmas parade, but my wonderful wife and boys did attend. They took lots of pictures, and it looked like an amazing time was had by all, like is the tradition in El Centro, like it occurs every year. So it was great to see that we're keeping up with that, and it's wonderful to see the community come out again, and it's really uplifting to see us after the very difficult years that we've had in the past couple of years.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Well, since our last council meeting, we met as the homelessness task force. And so there were several items on our agenda, and we received an update on, the tracking software that we're going to be using to track these individuals that are residing not under a roof, but, within our community, so we received that. Also an update on the Catholic Charities Day Center. They were hoping to have been open by Thanksgiving, but of course, with any construction job, it doesn't always go as planned. And so, so then I lost my train of thought. So I'm thinking now, from what I hear through the grapevine at the church, is that they're planning a mid-December, so maybe within the next week or so, an open house, but fortunately I haven't driven by there to see what the progress looks like. So, that's next on my schedule. Yeah, on my to-do list. That, that same day, we also attended the Imperial Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce's first mixer since the pandemic, shut everything down. It was very well attended. It was at the food bank, and I have to say, what a nice facility for an outdoor event. So, and it was good to see a lot of people that, that we haven't seen in quite a while. And then we jumped over to the Lotus Living Facility of the Tiny Homes was having a Thanksgiving dinner in appreciation for, the students that are living there, and all of the, the residential advisor and the community that came out, to enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner with these students that thankfully now have a home. And so, we also, Mr. Garcia mentioned, the tree lighting ceremony, and I have to say that, wow, once I got into the barricaded area, I was overwhelmed with how many people there were. I thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, because I think that the community was really thirsty for those activities, and the skating rink was kind of unusual. I have to say that I don't think it was a true skating rink, but that's another subject. But so I went with my family, my mom and my two nieces, and I have to say my little niece didn't want to leave, so we stayed until the absolute last song that the band played, and we just we enjoyed it as much as the community enjoyed it. So it was a really nice event. And then, of course, the next day, the parade. I'm like, oh my gosh. Again, it was, I had so much fun riding the sleigh, and then I had the reins on the reindeers. But, that was an adventure because, as the truck was moving along, sometimes he'd slow down or stop, and when we took a leap, I said, well, look at it this way. We're doing a takeoff, up into the air, because, I guess my role there was kind of like Santa Claus, with the elves and the reindeer. So that was a blast. That really, truly was a blast. And just going down the parade route and just seeing so many people and people that I haven't seen in a while, and, they greet you. And I mean, it was just, I'm so glad the parade is back. And, let's see what else has happened. I think, that kind of recaps, everything. No, just looking forward to our reorganization meeting this Thursday evening, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Mr. Oliva?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to try to condense some of these things or go quickly. I was fortunate enough to participate at a meet and greet to meet Malia Cohen. Malia Cohen is a current member of the Board of Equalization, and she's running to be the new state controller for the state of California. So she was hosted at a home just outside of Imperial. Various folks from throughout the valley got together, and so it was a pleasure to meet her. Her chief of staff, oddly enough, is from San Diego, but she was raised in Brawley. So she has some local folks helping her out understand, the San Diego and Imperial Valley regions. Let's see here. I did attend the farm worker breakfast, and it was just very rewarding to see as many farm workers that are still crossing. I will say that one thing that was very obvious to me was at the very beginning of this pandemic, we had difficulty convincing farm workers to wear PPE and to utilize it. and to not just utilize it when they're working or when on the bus, right? But throughout the entire time. And so seeing them now, almost 2 years later, they see the significance of it and the importance of it too. So many of them, actually every single farm worker that I saw was wearing PPE, so that was great. In regards to Lotus Ranch, I just have one selfish plug-in, and that is that, as you know, it's operated by IVC, and so I have a call-in with one of the staff members from IVC. They mentioned to me that a lot of the students that are residing in Lotus Ranch in the tiny homes would like to get festive and decorate their homes. Obviously, they don't have a whole lot of money to purchase decorations for their homes, lights and whatnot. And so I just kind of wanted to throw it out there. Should anyone have that Christmas cheer, that holiday spirit to donate Christmas lights or decorations for in front of their homes or anything like that, I know that I had mentioned this to some individuals, but if there's anything individually or organizational wise, anybody that's listening, let me know, and that way we can get it to them so that they could enjoy it during the holiday season. In regards to the Christmas tree lighting, I'm not going to transition to that. There was maybe a 15-second window where I was a little nervous as to whether or not people would show up, but that was just because it was early. It was very early. But then people started pouring in, and it has confirmed, like, once again, every time we have an event, people have shown up in greater numbers than what I ever expected. And so you're absolutely right, Ms. Marroquin, that people are thirsty for events. That's certainly what they have told us, and that is why I remember when Mr. Garcia and I met in the COVID task force, that was very clear to us that folks, as long as folks want to see more events, they'd like to come out as long as we're doing it in a safe way, which is why the majority or super majority of all of our events to the end of this fiscal year are all outdoors, and we do encourage safety as well as fun. So with the Christmas tree lighting, Madam Mayor, as you know, this was your moment to turn on the Christmas tree light, but because you were on business on behalf of the city, it fell upon me. I didn't feel right doing it. So what I did was I asked Chief Johnson to assist me, and he directed the explorers to find a child around amongst the crowd who would probably really appreciate it. And so they ended up finding
Somebody about my height? Is that what
he was pretty tall for his age.
5-year-old that's like 5 feet tall.
No, he was, I want to say he was like maybe 13.
No, he's attends Central Union High School, and he's
Okay.
a sophomore.
Okay.
So
His name is Angel Mariscal, and Angel Mariscal is on the spectrum of autism. And so he was there with his mother and his grandmother, and he had his headphones on, wearing a Super Mario t-shirt, right? And when we told him that Christmas was going to kick off for the city, that he was going to kick it off, I want to say I hadn't seen a kid happier in that moment. I mean, he was jumping up and down. He couldn't really express himself, but he was very happy. And so I just want you to know that Angel Mariscal kicked off the Christmas tree for us.
Awesome.
And of course, the next day, the Christmas parade was great. Again, if you went down Main Street, you thought, man, there's really not a whole lot of people that are coming to this parade. And then you hang a right, everyone was on 8th Street. It was just more than crowded, and it was fantastic. Thank you to staff for putting together all of the floats that we got to enjoy. The imagination was there. It was fun. I'm sure you all saw that the crowd just smiled. There's a lady in my mind who, an older white lady, I don't know if you remember this one. I hadn't seen somebody that happy. I mean, she just had the biggest smile on her face. She loved the music. She was happy. And I just want to say thank you to the staff for making it possible, and thank you to my colleagues for allowing these events to take place. And I will leave it there, Madam Mayor.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Ms. Singh.
Yes, just real quick. I think when we attend many of these events, we think of the activity. So what I want to leave you with is just that, the takeaways, right? The takeaways in participating in these events. When we were at the IB Regional Chamber Mixer, at the food bank and had the opportunity to visit the facility and to know that 30,000 individuals are fed every month is just unbelievable, the amount of work that happens there in that organization. For the Lotus Living, it was the first Thanksgiving that was celebrated there and actually celebrated by many of the students for the first time. They welcomed us to their home, and it was just a great opportunity of fellowship and gratitude. Attended the farm workers breakfast, and I will share with you, you saw the look of hard work, weathered faces, the smell of Bengay. And I think that the thing that was most impactful, I think the walk away for me, is that I saw from very young individuals to senior citizens that were well into their 70s. And that just reminds me, that was a great, humbling, reminding moment, right, of the hard work that is being provided here in Imperial Valley to be able to provide us food and across the nation and across the world. So had the opportunity to hand out gloves and bandanas. They were greatly appreciated. The Christmas lighting angel he was amazing. The excitement, the Christmas, if you were to embody what Christmas is about, the excitement on his face. And his mother was so proud that he was afforded that opportunity to be able to light the Christmas tree. When we talk about inclusion, it means so much to families to see that their son or daughter is included. So it's not just the activity, it's the inclusion. And I thank you for that, Mr. Oliva. The Christmas parade, I would say, Adriana, 10,000 steps. Is that what we averaged? 10,000 steps of dancing. I got a great picture with Elvis Presley. Oh, yeah. It was great. So those are the feelings that we walk away with. Just real quick, really important when we always talk about these events that are going on, please visit our El Centro events on our social medias. It will give you that opportunity to see the great things that are happening in which you and your family can participate. 2 things that I want to report on very quickly that could be of interest. One is that there's Create Your Own Wreath this Thursday, December the 16th, 3:30 to 5 o'clock at our City of El Centro Public Library. There'll be fun, crafts, games, refreshments, and music, and you'll get to be able to create a beautiful wreath for your door. The other item that's really important as well is that currently there's an opportunity to volunteer with Friends of El Centro. We have a board member position that is open. The deadline to apply is December the 22nd. So that's important just to let you know. You go on to our City of El Centro website. You can click on our Community Services Development tab, and then you'll go ahead and click on Friends of El Centro. Stacy does a great job in pushing that information out, but please make sure that you like us on Facebook or any of your social media platforms to be able to receive that information, and that's my report.
Very good, thank you. I think I'm going to go in reverse order, starting with yesterday. The Juvenile Justice Commission, one of the things they do every year is donate bicycles to the youth. But because of COVID and funding obligations, they're going to push that into 2022. So the Conrad Harrison Bike Giveaway Program, usually before Christmas, will take place in next year. Christmas parade, awesome. What I loved doing was walking around before the parade and seeing everyone and greeting and catching up. Even went back and said hello to Goliath, which was the horse that I rode when we went on the Border Patrol. Yes. Border Patrol. I mean, the horses were just amazing. Yeah. So 3 days in Monterey, actually 2.5 days for Cal Cities. Remember I reported that fantastic experience I had on Southern Airways? So Wednesday morning, I get up, Steve and we get up at 4 o'clock. Dennis Morita picks us up at 5 o'clock to take us for a 6 o'clock flight to get from LA to LA and then a flight from LA to Monterey. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because LA is fogged in. And we were looking at everything. Can we drive to San Diego? Can we go to Palm Springs? Can we fly to San Jose, rent a car, blah, blah, blah. finally called Dennis Marita back, and he's like, what do you mean come pick you up? I mean, you were supposed to leave, and we're like, yeah, 4 hours ago. So ended up getting a ride to Yuma. Well, booking the last 2 seats on a flight, the ones that they reserve right back by the bathroom, you know, the back of the plane, the seats that don't recline. So hitched a ride with Mr. Garcia to drive to Yuma, to fly to Phoenix, to fly to Monterey. And so all of the events that I was supposed to attend Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening. So anyway, it wasn't their fault that LAX was socked in, but if you're gonna fly in the wintertime, just be mindful of that. Already talked about the fantastic time the kids had at the parks. We also had the Salt Lake City was supposed to be in person for the National League of Cities. That was all virtual conference this year. We did have a meeting of the Community Enhancement Task Force, and I bet those minutes will be included in our agenda packet when they're available. Awesome job, Sylvia, on the Homelessness Task Force. That was also followed by a meeting with ICTC. I'm working with the recruiter to find a replacement, you know, or 6 people to replace Mark Baza, so I will keep you posted with regard to the ICTC executive director position. All of us crazy busy and looking forward to the reorg so I can start getting a little more rest. With that, Ms. Piedra, could we have a report from our city manager, please?
Sure, just a couple of things. One is I just can't thank you enough for what you did today as far as the one-time payment on behalf of all of our 300-plus employees that we have. I really appreciate that. I think that as Ms. Mava was presenting the Parks Master Plan, I have to basically do a shout out to our staff. A lot of the rehab work, a lot of those designs, particularly First Responders Park, was done in-house.
Yes.
And I think that tells you the caliber of employees that we have here in the city of El Centro. I know that you've seen the floats, the type of work that gets done when we do these special events. A lot of hours are put into those. And I know that, you know, we just approved our strategic planning. We talk a lot about hard and doing things from the heart. And I have to tell you that our staff does that. And I'm very, very proud of everybody because everybody pulls in. Police department, public works, maintenance, everybody is just so focused. And I really, really, again, thank you for what you did tonight in showing that appreciation to our staff. Just a couple of things is if you drive down Interstate 8, Imperial Avenue, our community identifier is up. So you have the El Centro words there. Hopefully you'll get a chance to do that. I took a drive this afternoon. As soon as Mr. Campos told me that it was up, I took a drive and it looks very, very nice. So we have our brand for El Centro. So very, very happy about that. And I know that, you know, come January, that area is going to be opened up, which is just totally going to improve our circulation. So very, very happy about that. The other thing, I know, Mayor, at the last meeting, you asked me to provide you an update as to where we are with the tax sharing agreement. Very happy to let you know that all cities at this point and the county have agreed to participate in that process, and LAFCO is starting the consultant work for that, and hopefully by either February or March, we should be getting some kind of draft information so that we can start looking at that tax sharing agreement with the county. So very happy that that project's moving forward. The other thing, just kind of more of a heads up for you, as is common for us as we are approaching the end of the year and as we look at the first meeting in January, staff has been working on, and due to vacation time that most staff take, and I know sometimes including the council, is we are looking at this point, which will bring for discussion at your December 21st meeting, the possible cancellation of the council meeting on January 4th. So right now we are working on items, and either they're going to be pushed up to December 21st or they're going to be pushed to the second meeting of January 18th. And we'll, again, our city clerk has included that item for discussion on December 21st.
So
and that's all I have.
Would it help to give like some preliminary indication with regard to the council's feelings on that, just to allow staff to start thinking about vacation plans. I mean, I think that with regard to,
I believe so, yes.
with regard, I mean, we can take formal action on the meeting, but certainly from my perspective, 3 days after or 2 days after the new year, I would rather staff take some time off and burn some of the time off of the books. I mean, I think we have heard throughout this COVID period how difficult it has been to schedule vacation time, so maybe allowing for, us to postpone items, or if there's nothing that we really need to schedule for that time, that would be an appropriate thing for us to do. Comments or?
Oh, no, I just want to say that from my understanding, staff is in anticipation, right? As of right now, there are really no major items or any items that are expected to be brought up that day.
That's
And
correct.
Like you said, to be pushed up or pushed back.
You see the grin?
I think that's the best gift that we can get, right? But we do with the caveat that, and staff knows this, is that if something comes up, if an emergency comes up, and we've done this in the past, that if something comes up and we need a meeting for a particular item, that either we do a noon meeting or we schedule something with the council just to make sure we don't miss any, emergency or urgent matter.
Or a Zoom meeting.
Or assuming that's correct.
I was going to say, for the folks who can't see on Zoom, staff is very excited about this topic. And they're hoping that we strongly consider it, that's all.
Madam Mayor, before we adjourn, I was just reminded that we need to thank Mrs. Korfman for making breakfast the day of the parade.
Oh, yes.
That's right.
That was fabulous.
Yes, I heard it was a wonderful breakfast, and also all our great staff who was there helping set up.
Thank you,
And
Edgar, for
that's something
reminding us.
That was reminded.
The one person that wasn't there, and he reminds us that. Well done, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you for that. Okay, any other questions, comments? This meeting is adjourned. We'll see you on Thursday.